Hello, and welcome. The long, winding journey of your day has finally come to an end. And now, a new journey begins. A gentle journey. Tonight, there is no need to rush. We will simply drift. Drifting down an ancient path, beneath a starlit sky. This is the Silk Road. But tonight, this is not a journey of hardship or survival. There is nothing you need to do. No sandstorms to fight. No need to worry about the road ahead. From this place of perfect safety and comfort, you are simply a quiet observer. We are just borrowing the mystery of this path, borrowing the vastness of the desert, and the stillness of caravans long since past, using them as a soft blanket to guide you into sleep. I am so glad you are here. You have found your way to a quiet place, a place of rest, set aside just for you at the end of your day. There is nothing else you need to do now, nothing to solve, and nowhere else to be. The only task before you is to allow yourself to be comfortable, to let the weight of the world soften and release its hold. Let's begin by finding a comfortable position. Allow your body to settle into the gentle support of the surface beneath you. Feel the weight of your head on the pillow, the gentle pull of gravity on your shoulders, your arms, and your hands. And now, let's turn our attention to the breath. We will do nothing to change it at first, simply notice it. Notice the air as it enters, cool and fresh. And notice it as it leaves, warm and soft. Let's take a slow, quiet breath in together now, through the nose, filling your lungs gently. And then, a long, slow sigh out, letting go of the day. Another gentle breath in, feeling your chest and belly rise. Hold it for just a moment, and then release it completely. With that breath, feel the muscles in your jaw begin to soften. Let your tongue rest in your mouth. Allow the space between your eyebrows to smooth and widen. One more deep, peaceful breath in, drawing in calm, drawing in stillness. And as you exhale, feel your shoulders releasing, dropping away from your ears, letting go of any burdens they have carried. Your journey is over for today. You are safe. You are at rest. As you continue to breathe in this slow, comfortable rhythm, I want you to imagine a space before you. A quiet, dark, and peaceful void. It is not an empty space, but a space of pure potential, a space of deep, deep quiet. And in the center of this quiet darkness, a single point of light appears. It is not bright or jarring, but soft, luminous, like a pearl glowing with its own inner light. As you watch, this point of light begins to move, to extend, drawing a delicate, shining line through the dark. It is a thread, a single filament of silk. It begins to unspool, slowly and without a sound. It is the color of pale moonlight, and it seems to shimmer, to catch some unseen light source. As it drifts towards you, you can almost perceive its texture. Not the perfect, glassy smoothness you might expect, but something more organic, more real. You can imagine the faintest hint of crispness to it, a subtle texture left by the natural gum called saracen that once coated the fiber, a memory of the creature that created it. This thread, this single, luminous strand, is our path tonight. It is a story, spun from countless lives and endless landscapes. It does not demand that we follow it with any effort. It simply unspools, inviting us to drift alongside it. As we begin, you may become aware of a subtle soundscape beginning to form around you. The gentle whisper of wind, the soft tread of feet on ancient earth, the distant murmur of a world long past. Do not feel the need to listen too closely. It is simply the air of the place we are going, the ambient breath of history itself, here to cradle the story and help you drift even deeper into rest. Your only task now is to breathe. Let the thread guide you. Let the sounds hold you. Your journey into the quiet heart of the past begins now. The luminous thread of silk continues to unspool before you, leading you out of the quiet dark and into a world bathed in a soft, pre-dawn light. The thread doesn't pull you forward. It simply drifts, a single, shimmering line against an immense and silent landscape. You have arrived. Not in a city, not in a town, but in the vast, open space between places. The world of the Silk Road is not defined by its destinations, but by the immense and quiet journey that connects them. It is a world felt, not merely seen. You find yourself standing on a flat, hard-packed earth, cracked and dry like ancient pottery. The air is cool and still, carrying a scent of dust and distant, dry grasses. Above you, the sky is a deep, velvety indigo, beginning to soften to a pale lavender at the eastern horizon. The last of the stars are brilliant and clear, seeming to hang just beyond your reach, sharp and crystalline in the dry air. There is no map here to orient you, no signpost to name this place. The only geography that matters is the one you can feel on your skin and hear in the profound silence. This is a journey measured in footsteps, in sunrises, and in the slow, patient turning of the heavens. As the first rays of sun spill over the horizon, they don't arrive with a sudden warmth, but with a gentle, illuminating grace. The light catches the tops of distant, sleeping hills, painting them in hues of soft rose and pale gold. And it reveals the nature of your companions. You are part of a caravan, a slow-moving island of life in this quiet emptiness. The shapes around you are still huddled and sleeping, wrapped in thick wool blankets against the morning chill. The only movement is the gentle, rhythmic chewing of the camels, their large, dark eyes reflecting the dawn. Their occasional deep, guttural groans are the first sounds to break the stillness, a low, resonant rumble that seems to be the earth itself stirring from its slumber. This is the rhythm of the road, a life that awakens with the light and settles with the darkness, governed by the sun and stars, the most ancient and reliable of guides. The thread of silk drifts onward, leading you away from the sparse grasslands and into a different world, one of bleached, sun-scorched immensity. You have come to the edge of the Taklamakan Desert. The name whispers on the wind, a name that local people say means, you go in, and you do not come out. It is a place of legends, a vast basin of sand that was once, in an age beyond memory, a great inland sea. Now, it is a sea of a different kind. Before you, stretching to an impossibly distant horizon, are the dunes. They are not small hills of sand, but colossal waves, frozen in a silent, golden ocean. Some are perfect, crescent-shaped Barchan dunes, their sharp crests like the edge of a blade. Others are immense, transverse dunes, rolling in parallel ridges for miles and miles, as if shaped by a tide of wind. The sun is higher now, and the heat begins to press down, a dry, steady weight. The light is blindingly bright, bleaching all color from the landscape, leaving only shades of white, gold, and the sharp, dark blue of the sky. The sand underfoot is so fine, so ancient, that it feels like flour. With every step, a soft puff of dust rises, coating your boots, your clothes, your very skin in a pale, gritty film. This dust becomes a part of you. You taste it on your lips, feel it in your eyes. And then there is the sound. At first, there seems to be none at all, a silence so deep it feels like pressure against your ears. But as you listen, truly listen, you begin to hear the voice of the desert. It is the wind. Not a howling gale, but a persistent, whispering sigh. It slips over the crests of the dunes, carrying with it a high, thin, whistling sound. It is the sound of sand grains, countless trillions of them, being lifted and shifted in a slow, relentless migration. Occasionally, you hear a deeper sound, a low hum or a sudden roar. It is the sound of the singing sands, a phenomenon that has puzzled travelers for centuries. It is the sound of a small avalanche of sand slipping down the steep face of a dune, the friction of the fine, dry grains creating a vibration that resonates like a deep chord from some immense stringed instrument buried beneath the earth. It is a sound that is both beautiful and deeply unsettling, a reminder that this seemingly static landscape is alive, constantly and silently remaking itself. The caravan moves with a deliberate, unhurried pace. The camels, with their wide, splayed feet, navigate the soft sand with a patient, rocking gait. Their double rows of long eyelashes protect their eyes from the blowing dust, and they can close their nostrils to mere slits, adaptations born of millennia in this very place. You watch them, these ships of the desert, and understand that they are more than beasts of burden. They are the keys to survival. The men who lead them, the camel drivers known as saraban, move with a similar economy of motion. They walk with their heads down, their faces wrapped in cloth to protect them from the sun and dust, their eyes constantly scanning the horizon, reading the subtle language of the dunes. The leader of this caravan, the caravan Salar is a man whose authority is not proclaimed but felt. He is a Sogdian merchant, a man from the legendary oasis cities of Samarkand or Bukhara, men who for centuries have been the lifeblood of this trade. He speaks little, his commands given with a quiet gesture of the hand, a slight nod of the head. His face is a map of journeys past, weathered by 1,000 suns, his eyes holding the quiet confidence of one who has crossed this sea of sand many times before. He navigates not with a map, but with a deep, instinctual knowledge. He reads the sun's position, the texture of the sand, and even the direction of the prevailing wind, which shapes the very dunes into reliable signposts. He knows the location of the rare and precious wells, sometimes marked by a pile of stones or the bleached skeletons of animals who failed to find them. His presence is a quiet reassurance to all who travel with him. Among the merchants and the guards, there are other travelers. You see a Buddhist monk from the Gobi, his saffron robes a startling splash of color against the pale landscape. He walks with a serene expression, his lips moving in a silent, whispered prayer, perhaps a mantra in Sanskrit. His destination is not a market, but a sacred site, a monastery in the mountains of Gandhara, and his journey is one of faith. Elsewhere, you see a family, perhaps Nestorian Christians from Persia, their quiet interactions a small pocket of warmth and domesticity in this harsh environment. They carry with them not silks or spices, but their faith and the hope for a new life in a distant land. The Silk Road is not just a conduit for goods, but for people, for ideas, for entire worlds of belief, all carried in the hearts of these quiet travelers. As evening approaches, the world transforms. The sun sinks towards the horizon, and the brutal, flat light of midday gives way to a soft, golden glow. The dunes, which seemed one-dimensional in the heat, now acquire depth and texture. Every ripple in the sand casts a long, deep blue shadow, turning the landscape into a breathtaking relief of light and dark. The temperature begins to drop, not gradually, but with a surprising swiftness. The heat that radiated from the sand is quickly lost to the clear night sky, and a penetrating chill begins to settle. The caravan makes camp in the hollow between two large dunes, a place that offers some small protection from the wind. Fires are lit, small beacons of orange light in the vast, encroaching darkness. The smell of burning tamarisk wood, a tough, scrubby desert plant, fills the air. The evening meal is simple, a piece of dry flatbread, a few dates, a small bowl of millet. But here, under the immensity of the sky, it feels like a feast. The stars emerge. With no moon and no competing light, the sky becomes a spectacle of impossible grandeur. The Milky Way is not a faint, hazy band, but a thick, luminous river of light, so dense with stars it seems almost solid. They seem close enough to touch, and their light is steady and brilliant in the cold, thin air. You can feel the turning of the earth as you watch them, a slow, majestic wheeling around the fixed point of the North Star. This is the other great map, the celestial clock that has guided travelers across this desert since time began. The conversations around the fire are muted, spoken in a dozen different languages: Sogdian, Persian, Chinese, Tocharian, but the meaning is often shared through gestures and the universal language of tired, grateful people at the end of a long day. Soon, the camp falls silent, the only sounds being the crackle of the dying fires and the soft, steady breathing of people and animals, a small, warm pocket of life huddled under the vast, cold, and utterly silent desert sky. Days turn into weeks, and the thread of silk leads you on, until one morning, the horizon is no longer a flat line of sand. It is a jagged, dark line of rock, a distant promise of a different world. You have crossed the sea of sand, and now you face the mountains. You have come to the Pamirs, the roof of the world. The ascent is gradual at first, a slow climb through rocky foothills and dry riverbeds. The air, already thin and dry, grows thinner still. Every breath becomes a more conscious effort. You feel a lightness in your head, a persistent, dull ache that is the first sign of mountain sickness. The landscape changes from gold to gray, a world of stone. The ground is covered in scree, vast slopes of loose, broken rock fragments that shift and crunch under the feet of the camels, creating a constant, rattling, sliding sound. As you climb higher, the scale of the world becomes almost incomprehensible. You are in a realm of giants. Peaks crowned with eternal snow and ice tower above you, their sharp, granite faces catching the sun with a fierce, crystalline glare. The valleys between them are immense, shadowy gorges where the wind funnels and howls with a lonely, mournful sound. The air is what you notice most. It is achingly clear, so pure and thin that distances become deceptive. A mountain that looks a day's journey away might take a week to reach. The light has a different quality here, sharp and unfiltered, making the colors of the rock and the sky seem more intense, more vivid. The cold is no longer just a feature of the night. It is a constant companion. It is a dry, brittle, biting cold that finds its way through the thickest wool and leather. The moisture in your breath freezes instantly, coating the cloth around your face in a fine layer of ice crystals. Sounds are different here, too. In the thin air, they don't seem to travel as far. A shout from a fellow traveler sounds oddly muffled, close in. The world feels both immense and strangely intimate, as if you are sealed in a silent, crystal dome. The caravan moves even more slowly now, picking its way through treacherous passes. The path is often just a narrow ledge carved into the side of a cliff, with a sheer drop of thousands of feet into the valley below. Everyone is focused, their movements careful and deliberate. A single misstep here could be the end. The reliance on the animals, and the men who guide them, is absolute. You watch as they navigate a section of slick, icy rock, their experience and calm a tangible force against the danger of the environment. Despite the harshness, there is life here. You see hardy, low-lying shrubs clinging to the rocks, their leaves tough and small. You might catch a glimpse of a Marco Polo sheep, with its magnificent curved horns, standing sentinel on a high ridge, or a golden eagle soaring on the updrafts, a tiny speck against the colossal face of a mountain. But it is the human signs of passage that are most moving. In a small, protected nook in the rock face, you see a shrine. It is not a grand temple, but a humble collection of offerings left by countless travelers over centuries. There are faded, wind-whipped scraps of silk, tied to a small branch, a Zoroastrian practice. There are small, smooth stones carved with Buddhist mantras, mani stones. There are brightly colored prayer flags, their Tibetan script slowly being erased by the sun and snow. It is a testament to shared hope, a quiet acknowledgement of the fragility of life in this overwhelming place, a place where all faiths and all people feel the same need for protection and blessing. You watch as the Buddhist monk pauses, adding a small, carefully folded prayer paper to the collection, his whispered words snatched away by the wind. The journey through the mountains is a lesson in humility. You are a tiny, insignificant thing in a world of monumental forces. The weather is a constant reminder of who is in control. A clear, sunny morning can turn in an instant. Dark clouds can boil up from behind a peak, and a sudden, blinding blizzard can sweep through a pass, even in the middle of summer. The journey becomes about endurance, about placing one foot in front of the other, about trusting the quiet expertise of your guides. And as you travel, you observe the quiet social fabric of the caravan. You see the wealthy merchant, wrapped in furs, who owns the precious cargo of silk, but who is just as cold and tired as everyone else. His wealth means little against the power of a blizzard. You see the mercenary guards, hired to protect the goods from bandits, their hands never far from their weapons, their eyes always scanning the high passes for any sign of movement. They are a necessary presence, a quiet reminder that the dangers of this road are not just natural. You see the servants and animal handlers, the lowest in the social order, but perhaps the most essential. They are the first to rise, tending to the animals, and the last to rest. Their knowledge of the camels, their ability to repair a broken strap or soothe a nervous animal, is the invisible machinery that keeps this whole enterprise moving. This vast and quiet world, from the whispering sea of sand to the silent peaks of the mountains, is the stage upon which our story unfolds. It is a world of immense hardship, but also of profound beauty. It is a world that demands resilience, patience, and a deep respect for the forces of nature. The unspooling thread of silk has led you here, not just to see this world, but to feel it. To feel the sun on your skin, the dust in your throat, the thin, cold air in your lungs. To hear the whisper of the wind and the slow, steady rhythm of the caravan. And to understand that this legendary road was not a line on a map, but a lived experience, a collection of a million quiet, human moments of endurance and hope, played out on the grandest of all possible stages. And it is in these quiet moments that we will continue our journey. The vastness of the world around you begins to fade, to soften at the edges. The towering mountains and the endless dunes recede, and your focus is drawn inward, to a single, persistent, and undeniable sensation, the feeling of thirst. It begins not as a sharp need, but as a subtle awareness. You become conscious of the inside of your own mouth, the way your tongue feels slightly thick, the faint stickiness of your saliva. It is a quiet, internal landscape, as demanding in its own way as the external one. The sun, which moments ago was a source of light and shadow, is now something different. It is a presence that actively takes from you. You feel it on your exposed skin, of course, but you also feel it drawing the moisture out of your very being, a slow, relentless evaporation. Your thoughts, which might have wandered over the landscape, now circle around a single, central point. Water. Your attention settles on an object strapped to the side of a nearby camel. A water skin. It is made from the whole hide of a goat, crudely cured, with the legs and neck sewn tightly shut. The dark leather is stained with sweat and grime, and the exterior is beaded with a faint layer of condensation, a process that makes the skin feel cool and damp to the touch, even as the sun's heat warms the precious contents within. It is heavy, and you can almost feel its weight just by looking at it, a dense, life-giving burden. When the time comes for the midday ration, the caravan leader, the *Caravan Salar*, gives a quiet, wordless signal. The camel driver brings the skin, and you watch as he carefully unties the stopper. The water does not quench your thirst in a single, satisfying gulp. That is a luxury of a different world. Here, you have learned the harsh discipline of rationing. You are given a small cup, and you pour only a little. You don't drink it right away. First, you just wet your lips, feeling the instant relief as the moisture soaks into the cracked, dry skin, a relief that is almost immediately stolen again by the dry air. Then, you take a small sip. The water is not cool or refreshing. It is warm, almost the temperature of the air, and it carries the taste of its container. There is a heavy, leathery flavor, a faint, musky hint of the animal that provided the skin, and perhaps a trace of the pitch used to seal the seams. It is the taste of survival, and you have learned to be grateful for it, but it is a gratitude born of pure necessity. The water slides down your throat, a temporary comfort, but it does little to wash away the fine grit of dust that seems to coat everything. This is the central rhythm of your existence, the metronome that marks the time between one sip and the next. And beneath this rhythm runs a constant, low, and quiet hum of anxiety. It is the true weight of the water. It's not just the physical burden on the camels, but the mental burden on every traveler. Your eyes are constantly drawn to the waterskins. You find yourself subconsciously judging their fullness by how they hang, by the gentle, heavy slosh you hear when a camel shifts its weight. You watch the others. You see how they drink their ration, whether they take a deep sip or a shallow one. There is no open suspicion, but there is a quiet, constant awareness. Water is the currency that truly matters here. It is more precious than the silk bundled in the packs, more valuable than any spice or jewel. You listen to the quiet conversations between the guide and the caravan leader, trying to glean from their tone, from their gestures, how far it is to the next well. 3 days? 4? A miscalculation is not an inconvenience, it is a matter of life and death. Your mind begins to play tricks on you. In the shimmering heat haze on the horizon, you see the impossible blue of a lake, the gentle sway of palm trees. A mirage. Your heart gives a small, foolish leap of hope before your rational mind takes over, but the disappointment leaves a residue, a small, weary ache. At night, your dreams are of water. Not the warm, stale water of the skins, but impossible, beautiful water. You dream of rain, of rivers, of diving into a cool, clear sea. You awaken with the feeling of that coolness still on your skin, only to find the dry air, the dusty blankets, and the persistent thirst, now sharper than before. You learn to read the landscape for its secrets. You look for the subtle dip in the terrain, the slight patch of hardy green scrub that might signal a hidden spring. You also learn to read the warnings. You pass the bleached white bones of a camel, and then another. Your guide points them out. They are markers, he explains. They confirm you are on the correct path, the one that leads to the oasis. But they are also a grim reminder that the oasis is still far away, and that others, on this very path, did not make it. And then, one afternoon, after days of nothing but sand and rock, the guide points to the horizon. There is nothing to see, but there is a change in the air, a faint, almost imperceptible hint of humidity. The camels sense it too. Their pace quickens slightly, their heads lift. Hours later, you see it. A small, miraculous patch of green. An oasis. The relief is not a sudden, joyous explosion, but a slow, profound unwinding of tension in your chest. The well is at the center of the small grove of date palms. The water is pulled up in a leather bucket, and as it splashes into the trough, the sound is the most beautiful music you have ever heard. You drink deeply now, without reservation. The water is still not perfect. It is brackish, heavy with the taste of salt and minerals from deep within the earth. But it is wet, it is plentiful, and as you splash it on your face, feeling it wash away the layers of dust and sweat, it feels like a blessing. You watch as the water skins are refilled, seeing them swell from limp, flat things into heavy, full vessels. The weight, which was once a source of anxiety, is now a profound comfort. For a little while, at least, the quiet hum of fear has been silenced. You have what you need. You can continue. As the immediate, sharp anxiety of thirst is soothed by the brackish water of the oasis, another, more subtle awareness begins to take its place. A deep, hollow ache in your stomach. Hunger. It is a constant, quiet companion on this journey, a dull and persistent ache that is never truly satisfied, only temporarily quieted. Evening settles around the small camp. The fire, which had been a welcome beacon of warmth, now becomes the center of your world. It is the kitchen, the dining hall, the heart of the caravan's brief and fragile home. The air fills with the smell of wood smoke, mingling with a dry, dusty scent that you now recognize as the aroma of cooking grains. Your meal is brought to you, and there is no variety, no element of surprise. It is the same as the night before, and the night before that. The food of the Silk Road is a testament not to flavor, but to endurance. Everything you eat is chosen for its ability to withstand the relentless challenges of time, heat, and motion. There is nothing fresh, nothing tender, nothing that can spoil. The cornerstone of your diet is a round of flatbread. It is not soft or pliable. To prevent it from molding on a journey that could last months or even years, it is often twice baked, a process that removes every last trace of moisture. It is incredibly hard, a disk of dry, brittle grain. When you break a piece off, it makes a sharp, cracking sound. The effort of chewing is considerable, and the rough, abrasive texture scrapes the roof of your mouth, leaving it feeling raw. You learn to dip it into your small cup of water, letting it soften just enough to be eaten without causing pain. The taste is simple, nutty, and overwhelmingly dry. Alongside the bread, you are given a handful of dried fruit. There are apricots, shriveled and leathery, their color a deep, dark orange. When you bite into one, the flavor is intense, a concentrated burst of tangy sweetness that is almost overwhelming. And there are dates, their skins wrinkled and glossy, their flesh a dense, sticky paste of pure sugar. They are a welcome, powerful sweetness that helps to make the blandness of the bread more palatable. You also have a small ration of nuts, perhaps a few precious pistachios, their salty, savory crunch a rare and welcome contrast to the otherwise uniform softness and hardness of your meal. These nuts are not just food. They are also a form of currency, a lightweight, high-energy commodity that could be traded at the next outpost. In a small pot over the fire, a simple porridge bubbles away. It is made from millet, a tiny, resilient grain that thrives in the arid lands of Central Asia. It requires less water and has a shorter growing season than wheat, making it the perfect staple for this environment. The porridge is thick and glutinous, a warm, heavy substance that fills your stomach. On its own, it has a mild, almost featureless flavor. But sometimes, the cook adds a spoonful of a precious, protected substance, ghee. This is clarified butter, heated until the milk solids separate, leaving behind pure, golden fat that will not spoil. The smell of the ghee as it melts into the hot millet is rich and toasty, and it adds a luxurious, oily smoothness to the porridge, along with much-needed calories for the next day's long walk. As you eat, you notice the complete and total absence of freshness. There is no crispness, no juiciness, no hint of a green vegetable or a ripe, watery fruit. Your body, deprived of these things for weeks on end, begins to crave them with a quiet, persistent longing. It becomes a quiet obsession, a game you play in your mind. You find yourself remembering, with an almost painful clarity, the exact sensation of biting into a crisp apple, the cool burst of juice, the clean, sharp snap of the flesh. You remember the taste of fresh herbs, the simple, earthy flavor of a boiled root vegetable. These memories of flavors become as vivid and tormenting as the mirages of water you see in the desert heat. You look around the fire at your fellow travelers. You see a man of the steppes, a Turkic guard perhaps, drinking from a small leather pouch. He offers you a sip. It is kumis, fermented mare's milk. The taste is startling, sour, tangy, and slightly effervescent, with the faint alcoholic kick of a low-grade wine. It is an acquired taste, but it is deeply nutritious, and for a moment, the sharp, acidic flavor is a shocking and welcome change from the endless cycle of dry, sweet, and bland. Eating is a quiet, functional affair. There is little conversation. Everyone is focused on the simple, mechanical act of chewing, of swallowing, of replenishing the energy that the day has taken from them. You are grateful for this food, for the way it quiets the ache in your belly and promises strength for the morning. But there is a weariness that comes with this diet, a monotony that dulls the senses. The taste of the road is the taste of dust, of leather, of preserved sweetness and dried grain. It is the taste of survival, a flavor that is nourishing in body, but leaves the spirit quietly, deeply, and profoundly hungry. The memory of flavors, of textures both real and imagined, begins to dissolve like sugar in water, fading into the background of your awareness. The world simplifies, narrows, and shrinks, until all that is left is the immediate, physical reality of this place. You have entered the heart of the Taklamakan, and here, the world is made of a single, all-encompassing substance, dust. It is not the coarse, granular sand of a windswept beach. This is something far more ancient and insidious. It is loess, a silt so fine it is like a dry, yellow-gray flour. For millennia, the winds have carried this powder from distant, eroded lands, depositing it here in a basin of profound emptiness. Now, you walk through it, and it, in turn, walks with you. Your world is no longer measured in miles or days, but in the space between you and the camel plodding softly in front of you. Beyond that, the landscape dissolves into a shimmering, dusty haze. The horizon is not a crisp line, but a soft, blurry smudge where the pale earth meets the pale sky. The sun is not a distinct orb, but a diffuse, white glare in the heavens, its light scattered and softened by the countless trillions of particles suspended in the air you breathe. You feel the dust as a constant presence on your skin. It is a fine, almost imperceptible film that coats every exposed surface, filling the lines in your hands, clinging to your eyelashes and eyebrows, giving them a ghostly, pale cast. You can feel its gritty texture when you run a hand over your arm. It works its way through the weave of your clothing, a subtle, persistent abrasion against your skin. At the end of the day, when you remove your boots, a small cloud of it billows out, and the skin of your feet is pale with its coating. You breathe the dust. With every inhalation, you draw it into your nose, into your throat, into your lungs. It creates a permanent dryness, a feeling of a slight, scratchy irritation that never goes away. You taste it. When you take a sip from your water skin, you taste the leathery tang of the water, and you taste the dust. When you chew on your hard, dry bread, you taste the nutty flavor of the grain, and you taste the dust. It is the salt of this land, a seasoning you cannot escape. And then there is the silence. It is an immense, heavy, and profound silence that seems to have a physical weight. It presses in on you, muffling the world. But it is not a complete absence of sound. If you listen, truly listen, past the quiet ringing in your own ears, you can hear the desert's subtle heartbeat. There is the constant, whispering sigh of the wind, a sound so ceaseless it becomes a part of the silence itself. It is the sound of the world slowly, patiently, being taken apart and put back together, one grain of dust at a time. And beneath the wind's whisper, there is another sound, a soft, hypnotic rhythm. It is the sound of the camel's feet. They are broad, soft, leathery pads, and as they meet the sand, they make a quiet, muffled thump-thump, a gentle, padding sound that is absorbed almost as soon as it is made. It is the rhythm of your journey, a slow, steady, and unending beat that marks the passage of time in this timeless place. Thump-thump, thump-thump. The sound becomes your meditation, your mantra, the only thing that proves you are still moving forward in a world that seems utterly unchanging. It is in this immense quiet, this world of dust and whispers, that the name of the desert begins to work on your mind. Taklamakan. The guides and merchants whisper the name with a kind of weary reverence. It is a name, they say, that means the place of no return. Or, in another telling, you go in, but you do not come out. The phrase hangs in the dusty air, a quiet, psychological weight that adds to the burden of the sun and the thirst. You are walking through a place that is defined not by what it is, but by what it does to those who enter it. It is a sea of death, and you are a tiny boat, adrift on its silent, golden waves. You look at the faces of your companions. They are covered in cloth, their eyes narrowed against the glare and the dust. There are no grand conversations, no stories told to pass the time. All energy is conserved. All focus is turned inward, to the simple, demanding task of endurance. The world has been stripped down to its barest essentials. The next footstep, the next sip of water, the next sunrise. Everything else has been scoured away by the wind and the dust, leaving only the quiet, fragile core of your own being, moving slowly, silently, through the heart of the great and empty land. The fine, pale dust of the desert floor is a fading memory. Your world is no longer flat and soft, but vertical, hard, and sharp. The ground beneath your feet has changed from silent sand to a shifting, noisy surface of scree, a loose carpet of broken stones that clatter and scrape with every single step, a constant, rattling protest against your passage. You have left the sea of dust behind and have begun the slow, arduous ascent into the Pamir Mountains, the great knot of rock and ice known to ancient travelers as the roof of the world. The change is not just in the terrain, but in the very substance that sustains you. The air. With every 100 feet you climb, it seems to become less and less substantial. It grows thin, crystalline, and unforgiving. Your body, accustomed to the thick, heavy air of the lowlands, is now starved. The act of breathing, once an unconscious, gentle rhythm, has become a conscious and demanding labor. Each inhalation is an effort, a deliberate pull against a vacuum that never seems to provide enough. Your lungs ache with a strange emptiness, as if they are bellows that can never quite fill. You find yourself pausing often, leaning against a rock, your chest heaving, the sound of your own ragged breath loud and intrusive in the immense quiet. And with this lack of air comes the sickness. It begins subtly, a faint, dull pressure behind your eyes, a quiet thrumming in your temples. But as you climb higher, this pressure grows into a persistent, inescapable headache. It is not a sharp pain, but a deep, throbbing ache that feels as if a tight, iron band is being slowly, relentlessly squeezed around your skull. It is the first and most constant symptom of what the travelers on this road have always known and feared: the sickness of the mountains, the body's quiet rebellion against the lack of life-giving air. This headache is your constant companion. It is there when you wake in the freezing pre-dawn dark, and it is there when you collapse into an exhausted sleep. It is accompanied by a profound weariness, a leaden weight that settles deep in your bones, making every step feel like you are wading through thick, heavy water. Even the simplest task, like retying a bootlace, leaves you breathless and dizzy, the world tilting and swimming before your eyes. Food, which was a source of quiet comfort in the desert, now holds no appeal. The thought of eating your dry bread and dates brings a faint wave of nausea. Your hunger is gone, replaced by this all-encompassing physical malaise. This is the invisible toll of the mountain pass, a quiet, internal battle that is far more draining than the steepness of the path or the biting cold. You are walking through a landscape of stunning, brutal beauty, a world of impossible scale. Towering peaks of granite, their faces scoured by ancient glaciers, rise up on all sides, their tops crowned with a blinding, incandescent white of eternal snow and ice. The sky above is a color you have never seen before, not the gentle blue of home, but a deep, dark, almost violet hue, the color of the void that lies just beyond the world's thin veil of atmosphere. The sunlight is equally intense, a sharp, unfiltered glare that makes the snowfields painful to look at, forcing you to narrow your eyes to mere slits. But the most dangerous aspect of this world is not its scale or its starkness, but its unpredictability. The environment is always in control. A morning can begin with a sky of perfect, cloudless clarity, the air so still and cold it feels like glass. In this stillness, the only sounds are the crunch of your boots on the icy path and the low, mournful moan of the wind as it slips through the high, rocky crags. But then, you notice a change. A few small, wispy clouds begin to gather around a distant peak. Within an hour, they are no longer small. They boil and churn, a mass of dark, bruised gray that seems to rise from the very rock of the mountain itself, swallowing the deep blue sky. The temperature plummets. The faint warmth of the sun is gone in an instant, and a deep, penetrating cold descends, a cold that feels heavy and wet. Then come the first flakes of snow. They are not the gentle, drifting flakes of a winter's day. They are hard and small, driven almost horizontally by a rising, howling wind. In a matter of minutes, the world disappears. You are in a whiteout, a swirling, blinding vortex of snow. The mountain peaks, the path ahead, even the person walking 10 feet in front of you, all are erased. The world shrinks to a tiny, chaotic circle of visibility. You can no longer tell the difference between the ground and the sky. The only reality is the biting cold, the sting of the ice on your face, and the roar of the wind in your ears. The caravan huddles together, a small, frightened island of life in the midst of the storm's fury. The camels groan, their thick fur already caked in a layer of white. The guides shout to one another, their voices thin and reedy, snatched away by the gale. There is nothing to do but wait, to endure, to hope that the path beneath your feet remains solid. This is the ultimate lesson of the roof of the world. All your plans, all your determination, all the wealth in your packs, means nothing. You are a small, fragile thing, and the mountain will decide if you are allowed to pass. The howling fury of the mountain wind slowly, gradually, begins to soften. The blinding swirl of snow thins, becoming a gentle, drifting fall of soft white flakes. The world, which had been a chaotic roar of gray and white, slowly comes back into focus. The oppressive gray sky lifts, revealing jagged peaks now laden with a fresh, pristine blanket of snow. The storm has passed. A profound, crystalline silence descends upon the pass, broken only by the sound of your own quiet breathing. The immediate danger is over, but a deep, penetrating cold remains. As the caravan slowly, carefully, begins to move again, your attention shifts. The focus on your own aching head, your own labored breath, begins to recede. Instead, you find yourself watching the creatures who make this journey possible. You are watching the camels. They are Bactrian camels, the twin-humped titans of Central Asia, creatures born of this very landscape of extreme heat and extreme cold. They are not merely beasts of burden, they are the caravan. They are the living, breathing engines of this entire enterprise, the true ships of both the desert and the mountains. And as you watch them now, you see them not as animals, but as miracles of biological design, each feature a perfect, poetic answer to the profound challenges of this land. Their most striking feature, of course, are the two great humps that rise from their backs. You had always thought them to be filled with water, a common myth told to children. But the camel drivers have taught you the truth. These humps are not water tanks, but great reservoirs of fat. In times of plenty, the humps are firm, tall, and proud. But on a long, hard journey like this, you have seen them begin to shrink, to soften, to even flop over to one side. The camel's body is a marvel of efficiency, slowly metabolizing this stored fat, converting it into both energy and water, a perfect internal alchemy that allows it to travel for days, even weeks, with little sustenance. You look at their faces, which have an expression of weary, ancient patience. Their large, dark, liquid eyes are protected by a feature of almost impossible delicacy and design. They have not one, but two distinct rows of long, thick, curly eyelashes. These lashes are a dense, beautiful net, an intricate filter that catches the finest particles of wind-blown dust or the sharpest slivers of ice, protecting the sensitive globes of their eyes. And below, you see their nostrils. They are not simple openings, but soft, pliable slits that the camel can close completely, sealing them shut as tightly as your own lips. In the heart of a sandstorm or a blizzard, they can simply shut down the outside world, breathing the air that is already in their lungs, waiting with that bottomless patience for the storm to pass. As they walk, they move with a slow, swaying, rocking gait. It is a rhythm that at first can be unsettling, but over the weeks, it has become a source of hypnotic comfort, the steady pulse of your journey. Their feet, so impossibly large and splayed, are another wonder. They are broad, two-toed pads of leathery flesh that spread out when they touch the ground, distributing their immense weight. They are the perfect snowshoes for the mountain passes, and the perfect sand shoes for the desert dunes, preventing them from sinking, allowing them to glide over terrain where a horse or a mule would founder and fail. The day's difficult journey ends. The caravan finds a sheltered spot, a small basin protected from the wind by a high wall of rock. The process of unloading begins, and you can hear the camel's famous complaints. It is a deep, guttural, groaning roar, a sound of protest that rumbles deep in their chests. The drivers speak to them in low, soothing tones, and you realize the groans are not a sign of aggression, but simply the weary complaints of tired laborers at the end of a very long day. As the heavy packs of silk and spices are lifted from their backs, you see the relief in their posture, the way they shake their great bodies, a ripple moving through their thick fur. This evening, you do not huddle by the fire immediately. Instead, you join one of the drivers, a man whose hands are as tough and leathery as the harnesses he works with. You have been given a simple, vital task, to help care for the camels. You are handed a stiff brush made of coarse animal hair. You approach one of the great beasts. It kneels in the snow, chewing its cud with a slow, sideways grinding of its powerful jaw, its warm breath misting in the freezing air. It watches you with an eye of profound, liquid calm. You begin to brush its coat. The fur is thick and shaggy, a deep, oily brown. It is not soft, but coarse and dense. As you pull the brush through it, a fine cloud of dust, a memory of the desert you left behind, puffs out into the cold mountain air, sparkling for a moment in the light of the rising moon. The work is hard. The fur is matted and caked with the sweat and grime of the road. But as you work, You can feel the solid, living warmth of the creature's body through the thick hide. You feel the slow, steady rhythm of its breathing. This is not just a chore. It is an act of communion. With each stroke of the brush, you are not just cleaning the animal, you are tending to your own survival. You are checking for sores from the heavy packs, for cuts or abrasions from the sharp rocks, for any sign of illness or weakness. The camel sighs, a deep, resonant sound, and shifts its weight, leaning into your touch. In this quiet, shared moment, there is a profound sense of connection. Your life, your hopes of reaching the next city, of selling your goods, of returning home, rests entirely on the health and well-being of this magnificent, patient, and utterly resilient creature. Your journey is carried on its back. And as you brush the last of the dust from its shaggy coat, you feel not like a master, but like a deeply grateful and deeply reliant partner. After weeks, perhaps months, in the profound and empty silence of the wilderness, you have grown accustomed to a world defined by the whisper of wind and the soft padding of your own footsteps. But one afternoon, your guide points to the horizon, and you see not a mirage, not a trick of the heat haze, but a solid, low shape against the landscape. A dark, rectangular smudge that slowly, over the course of hours, resolves itself into high, forbidding walls of packed earth and stone. You have arrived at a caravanserai. From the outside, it is a fortress. The walls are thick and imposing, rising from the flat earth with no preamble, their surfaces bleached and cracked by the sun. There are no windows, only a few narrow slits high up for archers. The entire structure is designed for defense, a bastion against the emptiness and its dangers. As your caravan approaches the single, massive gate, a heavy wooden door bound with thick straps of iron, you feel a sense of profound relief wash over you. For the first time in a long time, you will sleep behind a locked door, protected by something more than a small fire and the watchfulness of your guards. The great gate groans open, and you step across the threshold, moving from the vast, silent world outside into something entirely different. And the change is immediate, a physical shock to your senses. The immense quiet you have lived in for so long is shattered, replaced by a wall of overwhelming sound. For a moment, you simply stand still, letting the cacophony wash over you. It is the sound of 100 different lives, all compressed into this one courtyard. You hear the deep, rumbling groans and furious roars of dozens of camels, protesting as their heavy burdens are finally, painstakingly, removed. You hear the sharp, irritable braying of donkeys and the stamping of horses' hooves on the hard-packed earth. And under this chorus of animal noise, there is the human sound, a thick, complex tapestry of voices. You can pick out individual threads. The sharp, guttural bark of a Turkic guard shouting a command. The high, melodic lilt of a Sogdian merchant haggling over the price of fodder. The soft, tonal murmur of a Chinese pilgrim chanting a quiet prayer in a corner. A dozen languages you cannot comprehend, Persian, Tocharian, Sanskrit, all swirl together in the air, a living testament to the sheer diversity of the road. It is the sound of commerce, of exhaustion, of reunion and argument, a dense and constant hum of human activity that feels both alien and strangely comforting after the profound loneliness of the journey. As your eyes adjust to the dim, smoky light of the late afternoon, the scene of chaos resolves itself. The vast, open courtyard is a maelstrom of organized confusion. Dozens of small fires have been lit, their flames casting a flickering, unsteady orange light that throws long, dancing shadows against the high walls. The air is thick with a hazy, low-hanging smoke that stings your eyes and catches in the back of your throat. Men are everywhere, moving with the weary purpose of those at the end of a long day. They are unstrapping heavy bales from the backs of camels, revealing bundles of raw, creamy silk wrapped in coarse jute. They are opening wooden chests, and for a moment, The lamplight catches the gleam of glass beads from the Roman West, or the deep, rich color of lapis lazuli from the mountains of Badakhshan. And then, the smell hits you. It is a thick, almost tangible presence, a complex soup of aromas that you breathe in with every labored breath. The first and most powerful layer is the smell of the animals. It is the rich, earthy, slightly sweet smell of camel, the sharp, acrid tang of their urine soaking into the straw-strewn ground, and the ever-present, pungent odor of their dung. Woven through this is the smell of humanity, the sour, salty scent of unwashed bodies, the damp wool of sweat-soaked clothing, the faint, oily perfume of a wealthy merchant's hair. But as you move deeper into the courtyard, other smells begin to emerge from the dense background. From the many small fires comes the warm, inviting aroma of cooking food, the scent of onions and garlic frying in ghee, the nutty fragrance of boiling millet, the sharp, savory smell of roasting meat. And finally, like a secret and magical whisper, you catch the scent of the cargo itself. A bale of spices is opened nearby, and for a moment, the air is filled with the exotic, intoxicating perfume of cinnamon from Ceylon, of cloves from the islands of the east, of black pepper from the coast of India. It is a smell that speaks of immense distance, of wealth, of a world far beyond this dirty, noisy, and crowded courtyard. This is your sanctuary for the night. It is not a place of comfort, or peace, or quiet. It is a place of relative safety. You find your assigned space, a small, arched alcove in the wall, little more than a cell. The floor is hard-packed earth, perhaps covered with a thin layer of old, dirty straw. There is no bed, no privacy, only this small recess from the relentless activity of the courtyard. You unroll your sleeping mat, the weariness in your bones a deep and profound ache. The noise from the courtyard continues unabated, a constant, restless murmur. The air remains thick with the smells of life, of work, of waste, and of wealth. This is the great irony of the caravanserai. It is a respite, a haven from the dangers of the road. But it is an unsettling one. You have traded the clean, empty, and silent fear of the wilderness for the dirty, crowded, and overwhelming reality of this temporary home. The thick, overwhelming sensory soup of the caravanserai, the noise, the smells, the chaotic motion, begins to recede. The world outside of you softens and blurs, as if seen through a heat haze, even though the night is cool. Your awareness, which had been battered by the external world, now turns inward, drawn by a quiet but insistent signal of distress from deep within your own body. The safety you felt upon entering these high walls begins to feel like an illusion. You have locked the door against the bandits and the wolves, but you have realized, with a slow, dawning sense of dread, that the most dangerous threats are the ones you have carried inside with you. It begins as a simple chill, a coldness that has nothing to do with the night air seeping through the stone of your small alcove. It is a deep, internal shiver that starts in your bones and radiates outward, making the fine hairs on your arms stand on end. You pull your woolen blanket tighter around your shoulders, but the cold is not something that can be kept out. It is already within. Soon after the chill comes its opposite, a wave of dry, prickly heat that flushes your face and makes your skin feel tight and sensitive. A low-grade fever is beginning its slow, deliberate burn, making your forehead feel hot and clammy to your own touch. You lie back on your mat, your eyes closed against the flickering lamplight from the courtyard, and you become intimately aware of the landscape of your own body. There is a strange, uncomfortable churning in your stomach, a slow, coiling unease like a nest of sleeping snakes beginning to stir. It is not a sharp pain, not yet, but a persistent, nauseating pressure that makes the thought of your simple meal of bread and dates seem utterly repulsive. The dull headache from the mountains, which had briefly subsided, now returns with a different quality, a throbbing pulse that seems to keep time with your own slightly too fast heartbeat. This is the other great tax of the Silk Road, the toll that is paid not to a chieftain at a mountain pass, but to the unseen world. You understand, in a way that requires no scientific knowledge, that the road is a conduit for more than just silk and spices. It is a great, flowing river of life, and it carries everything with it, seen and unseen. For every merchant, every monk, every soldier you can see, there are a million invisible travelers, silent passengers on this great continental exchange. And in the crowded, unsanitary intimacy of a place like this, they thrive. The single well in the center of the courtyard, from which every traveler drinks, the water shared by the healthy and the sick alike. The communal latrine, a foul-smelling trench at the far end of the compound, swarming with flies that move without prejudice from the waste to the cooking fires. Here, in this temporary sanctuary, 1,000 silent exchanges are made. Modern archaeology, digging through the preserved remains of a latrine at a relay station just like this one, near the oasis of Dunhuang, has revealed the physical proof of what every traveler on this road knew in their gut. The soil is rich with the microscopic eggs of parasites that made this journey alongside the merchants: roundworm and whipworm, tapeworm, and the insidious Chinese liver fluke. These unseen travelers were passed silently from person to person, in the shared water, the undercooked food, the very earth of this crowded place. The liver fluke, especially, tells a quiet story of its own. Its eggs could only have been ingested by eating raw or improperly cooked freshwater fish from an oasis town, its victim then carrying the parasite within them for hundreds of miles, a living vessel for the next stage of its journey. But you know none of these specific names. You only know the feeling. The feeling of being invaded, of your own body turning against you. A wave of dizziness washes over you, and you are covered in a film of cold sweat. There is no medicine here, no physician to consult. The caravan master might have a pouch of dried herbs, some bitter root to chew for the fever, perhaps a piece of ginger for the nausea, but these are small, hopeful gestures against a tide you cannot see. A new kind of fear, colder and sharper than the fear of a blizzard or a bandit, begins to take hold. It is the fear of being left behind. A caravan moves at the speed of the healthy. A sick traveler is a liability, a delay, a drain on precious resources. You lie in the darkness of your alcove, listening to the sounds of the courtyard, and you perform a quiet, desperate calculation. Will you be strong enough to walk when the sun rises? Will you be able to keep your small ration of food down? What will happen if you cannot? The thought is a cold stone in your churning stomach. Your body, which has been your faithful, resilient servant through desert heat and mountain cold, now feels like a fragile, untrustworthy stranger. Your only recourse is a quiet, desperate hope. A hope that your constitution, hardened by the endless miles, is strong enough to fight this battle on its own. A hope that this is a passing affliction, and not the beginning of a deeper, more serious decline. You close your eyes, your body aching, and you drift into a fitful, feverish sleep, the unseen travelers continuing their silent, relentless journey within you. The fever, and the cold fear that came with it, has finally broken. You survived the unseen travelers. But the illness has scoured you clean, leaving behind a profound emptiness, a quiet, hollowed-out feeling in both body and mind. As you leave the noise and filth of the caravanserai behind, re-entering the vast, silent land, your mind is a blank slate. The worries about profit, the memories of home, the anxieties about the road ahead, they are all gone, burned away by the fever, leaving only the simple, mechanical reality of the walk. The sun climbs into a vast, empty sky of pale, washed-out blue. The world before you is a flat, featureless plain of baked, cracked earth, stretching away to an impossibly distant horizon. The only feature in this entire panorama is a single, dark shape, miles away. It is a peculiar rock formation, a jagged outcrop that stands alone, like a broken tooth on the flat gum of the earth. This rock becomes the focal point of your entire world. It is your destination, your compass point, the only thing that proves you are moving forward. But it is a cruel master. The tyranny of this journey is not one of whips or commands, but of pace. The caravan moves with a slowness that is almost beyond comprehension. It is a pace dictated by the steady, deliberate, and unchanging rhythm of the camel's gait. You fall into this rhythm without thought. The left foot, then the right. A soft thump as your worn leather boot meets the hard-packed ground. The gentle sway of your own body, a mirror of the rocking motion of the great beasts ahead of you. The faint, rhythmic creak of a leather strap on a nearby pack. Thump, sway, creak. Thump, sway, creak. This rhythm is the metronome of your existence. An hour passes. You look up at the rock formation. It is exactly where it was before. It has not grown larger. It has not changed its shape. For a moment, a sliver of irrational panic pierces the blankness of your mind. Are you moving at all? Is the caravan simply walking in place, trapped in an endless, static landscape? You know it is a trick of distance and perception, but the feeling is deeply unsettling. The rock seems to mock your efforts, a fixed and permanent thing in a world where your own motion feels utterly insignificant. Your mind, desperate for stimulation, begins to search for something, anything, to occupy itself. At first, it tries to think. You try to remember the face of a loved one, but it is a blurry, indistinct image. You try to imagine the city you are traveling to, but you can conjure no details. The sheer, overwhelming scale of the monotony is like a great, soft weight, pressing down on your thoughts, smoothing them out, erasing them. And so, you begin to play games. You start to count your steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. You focus on the number, letting it be the only thing in your mind. You reach 100, and a small, quiet sense of accomplishment flickers within you. You start again, this time counting to 1,000. The numbers become a chant, a mantra, a thin thread of order in the vast, empty chaos. When you lose count, and you always do, your attention shifts. You become aware of your own shadow. In the morning, it is a long, thin, dark shape that stretches out before you, leading the way. You watch its slow, almost imperceptible retreat as the sun climbs towards its zenith. At noon, it is a small, dark puddle at your feet, a thing of no consequence. And then, as the afternoon wears on, it begins its slow journey outward again, this time behind you, a faithful, silent companion, stretching longer and longer, its dark finger pointing back the way you came. The shadow becomes your clock, the only true measure of the day's slow, inexorable passage. When you tire of watching the sky and the shadows, your focus drops to the ground at your feet. The macro world is unchanging, but the micro world is a universe of infinite, tiny variations. You become a connoisseur of cracked earth. You notice the way the cracks form intricate, web-like patterns. You see a patch where the earth is a slightly different color, a pale red instead of a dusty brown. You focus on a single, small, gray pebble, its surface worn smooth by a million years of wind and water. You watch it as you approach. You see the way the light catches its surface, and then you watch it as you pass it by, a tiny, temporary landmark in your slow-motion journey. This is the mental discipline the road demands. It is the art of finding fascination in the featureless. It is the discovery of a strange, deep, and profound state of being that lies on the other side of boredom. You are no longer fighting the monotony. You are sinking into it. Your mind is not empty, precisely, but it is still. The rhythm of your footsteps, the rhythm of your breath, the slow crawl of your shadow, the vast, silent emptiness around you. It all merges into a single, unified experience. It is a meditative state, not one you have chosen, but one that has been forced upon you by the sheer, grinding, tyrannical pace of the journey. There is no despair here, not anymore. Despair requires energy. And here, in this slow, quiet, unchanging world, there is no energy to spare. There is only the next step, and the next, and the next. The meditative state, the quiet, internal rhythm of the walk, is finally broken by a change in the light. The sun, your relentless, white-hot companion for the entire day, begins its descent. The world, which had been a flat, two-dimensional landscape of bleached earth and pale sky, suddenly gains a breathtaking depth. The light turns from white to a soft, liquid gold, and then to a deep, bruised orange. Every tiny ripple in the hard-packed earth, every small stone, casts a long, impossibly dark blue shadow, creating a landscape of dramatic and beautiful contrasts. The distant, lonely rock formation that was your focal point is now a black silhouette against a sky of fire. For a few, fleeting moments, the desert is a place of profound and gentle beauty, a final, generous gift before the coming of the night. But it is a deceptive gift. The moment the last sliver of the sun's rim disappears below the horizon, the change is not gradual. It is absolute. It is as if a celestial switch has been flipped. The warmth of the day does not fade, it is stolen. The heat that the dry earth has absorbed for 12 hours is not held, not cherished, but is immediately and completely released back into the vast, empty sky. You can feel it leaving. It is a tangible, physical sensation, a sudden and shocking void where the day's warmth used to be. The temperature plummets with a speed that takes your breath away. The air itself seems to transform. It is no longer just air, it is now an active and aggressive presence. It becomes a thin, brittle, and biting cold, a cold that has no moisture, no softness. It doesn't seep into you, it attacks you. The first assault is on your extremities. A sharp, stinging ache begins in the tips of your fingers, in your toes, in the end of your nose and the lobes of your ears. It is a pain that feels like a tiny, sharp needle being pushed deep into the bone. You pull your heavy woolen cloak tighter, wrapping it around your body, pulling the hood low over your head. But the cold seems to mock the layers. It finds the smallest gaps, the thinnest spots in the weave, and works its way in, a relentless, seeping presence that is impossible to stop. You can feel it moving from your skin, deeper into your muscles, a deep, pervasive chill that makes your joints ache with a dull, throbbing pain. You and your companions huddle together around the small, precious fire. The fuel is scarce. A few gnarled branches of tamarisk, a tough, sinewy desert shrub, and several dry cakes of camel dung. The fire does not roar. It crackles and hisses, a small, brave circle of orange light in a world that has been swallowed by an immense, cold darkness. It provides a focal point, a psychological comfort, but its physical warmth is a miserly thing. It toasts your face and hands, but does little to combat the profound cold at your back. You exhale, and your breath, which had been invisible all day, now emerges as a thick, white cloud of mist, a ghostly plume that hangs in the still air for a moment before vanishing. You wrap a rough-woven scarf around your lower face, and within minutes, you can feel the moisture of your own breath freezing into a stiff, icy crust on the fabric. To survive, you must share warmth. You press your body against the person next to you, a stranger whose language you do not speak, whose story you do not know. But in this moment, none of that matters. You are no longer a Sogdian merchant or a Turkic guard. You are simply two warm bodies fighting against a common, deadly enemy. You can feel the small, precious heat of their body through the thick layers of wool, and they can feel yours. It is the most intimate and most impersonal of embraces, a huddle born of pure necessity. The true source of life-saving warmth, however, comes from the camels. The great beasts are made to kneel in a circle, their bodies forming a living wall against the wind. You and the others find places in the gaps between them, pressing your backs against their coarse, shaggy fur. You can feel the immense, furnace-like heat of their bodies, a deep and steady warmth that seems to rise from the very core of their being. The air is thick with their animal smell, a rich, musky, and strangely comforting aroma. You can hear the slow, rhythmic grinding of their jaws as they chew their cud, and the occasional deep, rumbling sigh that seems to vibrate right through you. In this shared space, you are no longer just a traveler, and they are no longer just beasts of burden. You are a single, symbiotic organism, surviving the night together. As the night deepens, you look up. The sky is a spectacle of impossible, terrifying beauty. With no moon, and in the complete absence of any moisture in the air, the stars are not faint, twinkling points of light. They are sharp, brilliant, and seemingly solid chips of ice, scattered across a cloth of absolute black. The Milky Way is a thick, luminous river of light, so bright it seems to cast its own faint, ghostly glow upon the land. But there is no warmth in this beauty. In fact, it feels as if the cold is coming from the sky. The vast, empty, black space between the stars feels like the source of the chill, a great, cosmic cold that is actively radiating down upon the world, pulling every last vestige of heat from your body, from the ground, from the very air itself. It is a deep, profound, and penetrating cold that seems to be the fundamental nature of the universe, and you are just a small, fragile, and temporary pocket of warmth, fighting to exist for a few more hours within it. You huddle deeper into the camel's fur, close your eyes against the brilliant, cold stars, and wait, with a quiet, desperate patience, for the return of the sun. The deep, biting cold of the desert night has once again been vanquished by the slow, miraculous return of the sun. The world is reborn in soft shades of rose and gold, and the shared ordeal of survival has created a quiet, unspoken bond among your companions. The small circle around the morning fire is a place of shared warmth, of shared sips of precious water, of shared, dry bread. You are a community, a small, fragile tribe, bound together by the common purpose of reaching the next oasis. But as the sun climbs higher and the day's long walk begins, a different kind of awareness settles over you. It is a feeling that has been present all along, a quiet background hum, but now it comes into sharp, clear focus. It is the profound and unshakable feeling of being utterly alone. You are surrounded by people, walking in the same rhythm, enduring the same sun, drinking the same stale water. Yet you are an island. The man walking in front of you, the one who shared his small piece of dried meat with you last night, begins to speak to the man beside him. His language is Sogdian, the common tongue of the road, a language that flows with a smooth, almost musical cadence. He says something, and the other man laughs, a short, sharp bark of amusement. It is a shared moment, a small spark of human connection, a joke passed between two minds. But for you, it is nothing. The sounds are a stream of meaningless music. You see the smile, you hear the laugh, but the meaning, the shared thought that created it, is a locked room to which you have no key. In that moment, the physical space between you and them feels like a vast, unbridgeable chasm. This is the quietest, and perhaps the deepest, of the journey's many challenges. The barrier of language. It is a wall of glass, invisible but utterly solid. You can see the lives of others being lived. You can see their emotions play across their faces, but you cannot truly enter their world, and they cannot enter yours. In the evening, around the flickering light of the dung fire, this feeling becomes even more acute. The day's work is done, And this is the time for stories, for complaints, for the small exchanges that bind people together. You watch and you listen, a silent observer at a feast of words. A group of Turkic guards are speaking in their own tongue, a language full of hard consonants and deep, guttural sounds. Their voices are loud, their gestures expansive. They seem to be retelling a story, and from their pantomime of drawing a bow and looking to the sky, you can guess it is about a hunt. But the details, the skill of the archer, the size of the beast, the thrill of the chase, all of this is lost to you. You can only watch their faces, animated and alive, and feel a profound sense of exclusion. Nearby, a Buddhist monk from the oasis city of Kucha is speaking quietly to a fellow pilgrim. His language is Tocharian, a tongue that sounds utterly alien, with a gentle, flowing quality, full of soft, rounded vowels. He points back along the road, his expression one of weary sadness. Perhaps he is speaking of the hardships of the journey. Perhaps he is speaking of a shrine they passed, or a teaching he has remembered. Or perhaps he is speaking of the family he left behind, a wife and children he will not see again for years. You will never know. His inner world, his fears, his hopes, his faith, it is all locked away behind the sounds you cannot decipher. You learn to communicate in the universal and profoundly limited language of gesture. You can point to your water skin and raise your eyebrows in a question, asking if a refill is near. You can rub your stomach and smile to show your gratitude for a shared piece of food. You can nod your head in greeting, and you can raise a hand in farewell. It is a language of basic needs: water, food, sleep, danger. It is the language of survival, but it is not the language of life. There is no way to tell the story of the strange dream you had last night. There is no way to describe the precise color of the sunset, and to ask if your companion saw it too, and if he also found it beautiful. There is no way to speak of the quiet ache of homesickness that settles in your chest in the lonely hours before dawn. All of your own stories, the memories of your childhood, the reasons you undertook this perilous journey, the fears that keep you awake at night, they all remain your own, circling endlessly inside your own mind, with no way to be shared, to be lessened, or to be understood. And so you live in a state of profound intimacy and profound isolation. You huddle together for warmth, your bodies pressed against one another, sharing the most fundamental resource you have. You eat from the same pot, you drink from the same well, you face the same dangers. You are closer to these strangers, in a physical sense, than you have ever been to anyone in your life. But your mind, your heart, your very essence, remains utterly, completely, and silently alone, an unspoken story walking in a sea of other unspoken stories. You are a ghost in their world, and they are ghosts in yours, all of you haunting the same vast, empty, and silent stretch of road. The silent world of your own thoughts, the one you inhabited so completely amidst the unheard languages of your companions, is suddenly and quietly pierced. It is not a sound that breaks your reverie, but a change in the rhythm of the world. The gentle, rocking gait of the camel you are leading slows, then stops. Ahead, a ripple of stillness travels down the long line of animals and men, a wave of silence moving backward. The familiar, ceaseless creak of leather and the soft padding of feet die away, and the silence that rushes in to fill the void is heavy and unsettling. In the vast, open desert, forward motion is life. Stillness is a warning. You raise your head, your eyes scanning the shimmering horizon ahead. And you see them. At first, they were just dark specks in the heat haze, indistinguishable from the desert scrub. But now, they have resolved into the clear shapes of men on horseback, perhaps a dozen of them, sitting motionless, directly in your path. They are not traders. They are not pilgrims. Their posture is different, their energy is different. They sit there sturdy, short-legged horses with a casual authority, as if they have grown from the very earth beneath them. They are the land given human form, and they are here to remind you that you are merely a guest. An unwelcome one, at that. Your caravan leader, the old Sogdian merchant whose face seems carved from desert rock, says nothing. His expression does not change, but you see the subtle tightening of the muscles along his jaw. He raises a hand, a signal for everyone to remain calm, to stay put. The guards of your own caravan, hired Turkic mercenaries, shift their weight, their hands moving almost unconsciously to rest on the hilts of their swords, but they make no aggressive move. This is a ritual as old as the road itself, a delicate and dangerous dance of power. The horsemen approach, not at a gallop, but at a slow, deliberate walk. As they draw closer, you can see the details. Their faces are weathered, darker than those of your companions, their eyes narrowed against the perpetual glare of the sun. They are armed not with the long swords of soldiers, but with short, powerful bows and curved knives tucked into their belts. Their clothes are not of cotton or silk, but of coarse, undyed wool, the color of the dust itself. They and their mounts seem to be a single entity, perfectly adapted to this harsh world. Their leader, a man with a thick, black beard and a long scar that runs from his temple to his chin, brings his horse to a halt a few feet from your caravan leader. He speaks. The language is utterly foreign, a local dialect you have never heard, full of hard, clipped sounds that seem to mimic the cracking of dry earth. He does not shout. He does not sound angry. His tone is flat, conversational, as if he is merely stating a fact of nature, like the sun rising or the wind blowing. He gestures with his chin, a slight, almost imperceptible movement, first at your caravan, laden with its precious, hidden cargo, and then at the land all around you, the vast, empty territory that belongs to his chieftain. The meaning is clear, universal, and absolute. This is ours. You are passing through. You will pay. The Sogdian merchant dismounts with a slow, weary grace. He does not protest. He does not argue. To do so would be a sign of weakness, an invitation for cruelty. Instead, the negotiation begins. It is a quiet, simmering affair, a battle fought not with weapons but with posture, with tone, with the careful weighing of words you cannot understand. You watch the two men, the merchant and the chieftain's man, as they stand between the two groups. There are long pauses. The sun beats down. A fly buzzes lazily around your head. The tension is a physical thing, a tightening in your chest, a dryness in your throat that has nothing to do with thirst. You are utterly powerless, a pawn in a game whose rules you do not know. Your life, your future, the success of this entire venture, all of it rests on the outcome of this quiet conversation in a language you cannot comprehend. Finally, after an eternity that may have only been a few minutes, the Sogdian merchant gives a single, tired nod. He turns and speaks a quiet word to his closest aide. A small, heavy leather pouch is untied from a saddle. You hear the soft, metallic clink of coins as it is brought forward. This is the tax. The price of passage. It is not a bribe. It is a recognized, if resented, cost of doing business. But you feel a hot flush of frustration. Every coin in that pouch represents a reduction of your own slim margin of profit, another week of work for nothing, another risk taken for a diminished reward. The chieftain's man does not take the pouch. He gestures for it to be opened. With agonizing slowness, the coins are poured into his waiting, gloved hand. He does not count them quickly. He inspects them, turning one or two over, rubbing them between his thumb and forefinger, as if testing their quality. It is a final, small assertion of dominance, a reminder that they control not only your passage, but your time. When he is satisfied, he lets the coins drop back into the pouch, pulls the drawstring tight, and gives another curt nod. Without another word, he and his men turn their horses and move to the side of the track, clearing the path. They do not leave. They simply sit and watch, their dark eyes following you as the caravan slowly, reluctantly, begins to move again. The encounter is over, but the feeling it leaves behind is a bitter residue in your mouth. There was no violence, no shouting, no blood. But there was a threat, hanging silent and heavy in the air. It was the threat of absolute power, the frustrating, humiliating knowledge that you are a stranger here, and that your safety and prosperity depend entirely on the whims of others. You have paid the tax, but the true cost is the piece of your own autonomy you have been forced to leave behind, another small part of yourself surrendered to the vast, indifferent, and hungry road. The simmering frustration from the encounter at the checkpoint lingers in the air long after the chieftain's guards have become specks in the shimmering heat haze behind you. The caravan has reformed, the slow, hypnotic rhythm of the walk re-established, but the silence that hangs over your companions is different now. It is not the meditative quiet of endurance, but a sullen, weary stillness. The sun beats down from the apex of a white-hot sky, and the only sounds are the soft padding of the camel's feet and the faint, rhythmic creak of leather, a sound that has become the ceaseless soundtrack to your life. And then, a new sound breaks the rhythm. It is not loud or dramatic. It is a small, sharp, and utterly final sound. A dry crack, like a dead branch snapping underfoot. It is followed an instant later by a heavy, solid thud, and the muffled cascade of something large and soft hitting the dusty ground. The camel directly in front of you lets out a startled, guttural grunt, stumbling as its load shifts violently. And just like that, the entire world stops. The caravan leader, walking at the head of the long line, raises a hand without turning. The signal is unnecessary. The chain reaction is already in progress. The camel behind you bumps gently into your back, and the one behind it stops, and the one behind that. The gentle, forward-moving pulse of the caravan ceases, and in its place, a profound and unsettling silence descends. The absence of the familiar rhythm is more jarring than any noise. In this vast emptiness, stillness is a state of emergency. The caravan leader, the old Sogdian merchant, walks back down the line, his expression unreadable, his movements slow and deliberate. There is no panic, only a deep, weary resignation. He stops beside the camel that stumbled. You see the problem immediately. The intricate wooden frame of its pack saddle, the palin, is slumped grotesquely to one side. On the ground, lying in a cloud of its own fine dust, is a large, heavy bale, tightly wrapped in coarse sacking and bound with rope. And dangling from the saddle, limp and useless, is the cause of it all. A single, broken leather strap. Your focus narrows until this small, mundane object is the only thing in the world. It is a thick strap of rawhide, perhaps an inch across. You can see the point where it broke. The leather is not cut, but torn, the edges frayed and fibrous, like a piece of old, dry paper. The outer surface, exposed to the relentless sun for months, has been bleached to a pale, lifeless gray, crisscrossed with a fine network of cracks. The underside, protected from the light, is still a dark, oily brown, stained with the sweat and grime of the animal. You can almost feel the story of its failure. You can imagine the fine, abrasive desert dust, working its way into every tiny crack, each grain a microscopic saw, slowly, patiently, cutting through the fibers. You can imagine the sun, day after day, baking the moisture out of the hide, making it brittle and fragile. And you can imagine the constant, tiny friction, the rhythmic rubbing against the wooden frame, a million small movements, each one an insignificant assault, but which, taken together, have conspired to bring this entire, massive enterprise to a complete and total halt. The luminous thread of silk that led you into this story seems to have a dark echo in this frayed, broken thread of leather, a reminder that every journey, no matter how grand, is held together by the smallest, most fragile of things. The consequences of this tiny failure ripple outward through the caravan. It is not a simple delay. Every moment you are stopped is a moment you are consuming resources. It is another mouthful of water from the steadily lightening skins. It is another handful of dates from the dwindling supply. It is another hour of exposure on this open, featureless plain, an easy target for any watching eyes. A day's delay could mean the difference between reaching the next well with water to spare, or arriving with tongues swollen from thirst. There is no discussion, no assignment of blame. There is only the quiet, methodical work of repair. The camel driver, a man with hands as tough and cracked as the leather he is about to mend, speaks in low, soothing tones to the camel as he and another man carefully unload the remaining bale from the other side of the saddle, balancing the weight. Then, he kneels in the dust and opens a small, worn leather pouch. This is his toolkit, the humble hospital for the caravan's weary bones. He takes out a bone-handled awl, its iron point worn smooth with use. He removes a thick, slightly curved needle of bronze, and a small, tightly wound coil of dried animal sinew, the thread that will stitch this world back together. The work is slow and painstaking. You watch, mesmerized by the quiet focus of his hands. He takes a spare piece of leather from his pouch, cuts it to size, and uses the awl to punch a series of holes along its edges, and along the two broken ends of the strap. The effort is immense. He grunts softly as he leans his weight into the tool, forcing the point through the tough, unyielding hide. Then, he begins to sew. There is no wasted motion. The bronze needle passes through, pulling the sinew tight with a small, squeaking sound. It is a slow, deliberate, and powerful rhythm. Stitch, pull tight. Stitch, pull tight. He is not just repairing a piece of equipment. He is mending the lifeline of the caravan. He is stitching time itself, buying back the hours that this small, frayed thread has stolen. The fate of everyone here, the value of the silk in the fallen bale, the very lives of the travelers, all depend on the strength of this one, humble repair. The slow, patient work of the camel driver is complete. The frayed, broken strap has been mended, the heavy bale of silk re-secured, and the camel soothed with a low, gentle murmur. The pause, which felt like an eternity under the white-hot sun, is over. With a quiet nod from the caravan leader, the slow, familiar rhythm of the journey resumes. Thump, sway, creak. The caravan moves forward once more, a tiny, fragile line of life inching its way across a vast, empty page. Your mind, lulled by the return of the familiar cadence, begins to drift. And a question, soft and insistent as the whisper of the wind, rises from the depths of your thoughts. How do they know the way? You look ahead, and then behind, and then to your left and your right. The world in every direction is a vast, featureless expanse of pale, cracked earth, shimmering under the relentless sun. There is no road, no path, no signpost. To your untrained eye, it is an ocean of nothingness, and you are adrift on a tiny, helpless raft. There are no maps here. Not in the way you might understand them. No parchment scrolls with lines and names. The map is a living thing, a story, a memory, carried in the mind of one man, the guide. He is the caravan's compass, its memory, its hope. You watch him now as he walks near the front of the line, his steps as slow and measured as everyone else's, but his stillness is of a different kind. It is a stillness of profound attention. His head is always up, his eyes, narrowed against the glare, are constantly, ceaselessly, reading the world. He is reading a language you cannot even begin to comprehend. During the day, he reads the sun. He notes the precise angle of its arc, the length and direction of the shadows, using his own body as a living sundial to maintain their course. At night, he reads the brilliant, cold map of the stars, finding the unmoving point of the North Star and orienting the entire world around its quiet, reliable presence. He reads the Earth itself. He points to a series of crescent-shaped sand dunes, their gentle slope rising to a sharp, curved crest. The steep side, the slip face, he explains with a simple gesture, always points in the direction the wind blows. By knowing the season and the prevailing winds of that season, he can use the very shape of the land as his compass. And he reads the grim signposts left by those who came before. You pass a small, sun-bleached mound. It is the skeleton of a camel, the bones a stark, brilliant white against the dusty brown earth, the great ribcage a hollow, broken cage. The guide points to it, his expression unchanging. It is not a symbol of death to him, but a confirmation of life. It is a landmark. It tells him that this is the correct path, the one that leads, eventually, to the next well. He has seen this specific skeleton on a dozen journeys before. It is an old and tragic friend. But all of these small, subtle clues are secondary. The true anchor of his navigation is something far larger. He stops the caravan for a brief rest, and points to the horizon, a direction you had not even been looking. You follow his outstretched finger, and at first, you see nothing but the blurry, shimmering line where the earth meets the sky. But you keep looking, your eyes straining, and then you see it. It is not a mountain, but the ghost of a mountain range, a faint, jagged line of the palest blue, so distant it seems to be a cloud, a trick of the light. The guide points again, this time to a specific point on that ghostly line. And now you see it. A tiny, almost imperceptible dip in the ridgeline. A small notch, as if a giant had taken a tiny bite from the top of the world. That notch, a feature that is 100 miles away, a landmark you will not reach for another week of walking, is the single, unwavering point on which he has fixed his entire being. Every decision he makes, every slight adjustment of course, is in relation to that tiny, distant flaw in the line of the horizon. But there is a deep and quiet fear that underlines even the guide's profound expertise. The landscape is not permanent. It is a living, breathing thing, and its breath is the wind. One afternoon, the air grows still and heavy. The light takes on a strange, sickly, yellow-gray hue. A low, humming sound begins, a vibration you can feel in the soles of your feet. The camels grow restless, groaning and shifting, sensing what is coming. On the horizon, a dark wall is rising, a solid, churning mass of brown and black that is swallowing the sky. It is the asterisk Kara Boran, the black hurricane. It hits you not with a gust, but with a solid impact, a physical wall of wind and sand that knocks you off your feet. The world disappears. The sun is gone. The sky is gone. The man standing 5 feet from you is gone. You are in a roaring, screaming, suffocating vortex of dust. The sound is a deafening, all-encompassing roar that drowns out all thought. The air is so thick with dust you cannot breathe. You can only sip at it, the fine, gritty powder coating your mouth and throat. The caravan does the only thing it can. It stops. The camels lie down, tucking their heads low, their bodies forming a small, temporary anchor in the chaos. You huddle behind one, your face buried in its coarse fur, and you wait. For how long, you cannot tell. Time has no meaning here. And then, as suddenly as it began, it is over. The roaring wind subsides, replaced by an eerie, profound silence. The thick, dark cloud of dust begins to settle. The sun reappears, a pale, hazy disk in a sky of dirty yellow. You slowly, painfully, Get to your feet, your body caked in a thick layer of fine, brown silt. You look around, and a cold, sharp dread, unlike anything you have ever felt, pierces your heart. The world is gone. The familiar shapes of the dunes around you, the gentle valley where you had been walking, they have all vanished. The landscape has been wiped clean, scoured, and redrawn. It is a new world, a place you have never been before. You look to the guide. He stands alone, his back to you, surveying the alien landscape. For a long, terrifying moment, he is absolutely still. And in that stillness, you feel the weight of his uncertainty, the sudden, terrifying possibility that even he, the man who reads the world, is now lost. Then, he slowly, deliberately, turns his head, his eyes scanning the horizon, searching for something, anything, that has survived. He is searching for the notch. And as you wait, holding your breath, you understand that your entire world, your very life, now hangs upon that single, desperate act of seeing. The long, monotonous rhythm of the walk has finally led you to a small mercy, a trading post. It is not a city, not even a town, but a small, dusty cluster of low, flat-roofed buildings made of mud brick, huddled around a single, precious well. It is a place that exists for one reason only, to serve the river of travelers that is the road itself. After the immense, featureless emptiness of the desert, the sight of these simple structures, the presence of other human beings, brings a small, quiet loosening of a knot of tension in your chest you didn't even know was there. You find yourself in the dim, smoky interior of what passes for a tavern, a small, dark room with a low ceiling and a floor of hard-packed earth. The air is thick with the smell of roasting mutton, the sharp tang of cumin, and the sweet, cloying aroma of cheap wine fermented from dates. Small, sputtering oil lamps cast a weak, flickering yellow light, leaving the corners of the room in deep, mysterious shadow. The room is filled with the low, constant murmur of a dozen conversations in a half-dozen languages. You are not listening to any of them, content to simply sit in the relative cool, sipping a small bowl of hot, bitter tea, feeling the warmth spread through your weary body. But then, you catch a fragment of a conversation from a nearby table. You do not understand the language. It is the fast, flowing tongue of Sogdian merchants, but you understand the tone. The voices are low, hushed, urgent. The men are leaning in close to one another, their faces tight with a shared, grim intensity. One of them makes a sharp, cutting gesture with his hand, and the others fall silent, their eyes wide. Later, as your own caravan prepares to camp for the night just outside the walls of the small settlement, the rumor finds you. It moves like the wind, a whisper passed from driver to guard to merchant. It has the fragmented, uncertain quality of news that has traveled a long way, a story worn smooth and thin by the telling. A caravan, they say, was attacked. Not here, but a few days' journey to the west, in a narrow pass you yourself must cross in a week's time. They were merchants from Khotan, carrying a cargo of jade. The details are sparse, contradictory. Some say the attackers were Xiongnu tribesmen, others say they were local bandits, men driven to desperation by famine. Some say there was a fight, others say the caravan surrendered without a struggle. But on one, chilling point, all the stories agree. Nothing was left. Not a single bolt of silk, not a single piece of jade. The camels were taken. The supplies were looted. And the men were simply stripped of their clothes, of their boots, of everything, and left to the mercy of the wilderness. You think of this, and a new kind of fear, colder and more intimate than the fear of a sandstorm or a blizzard, begins to take root. This is not the grand, impersonal violence of nature. This is the calculated, human cruelty of men. And the terror of the story is not in the image of a quick, violent end. It is in the image of the aftermath. The image of men, alone and naked, with no food, no water, no protection from the sun, left to walk 100 miles to the nearest well. It is the vision of a slow, lonely, and utterly hopeless demise. This quiet, whispered story is like a poison. It seeps into the lifeblood of your caravan, and it changes everything. That night, the conversations around the fire are muted, the atmosphere heavy with a new, unspoken anxiety. The men check and recheck the harnesses on the camels, not just for wear, but with a new, grim purpose. The hired guards are no longer relaxed figures, sharing jokes and wine. They are coiled springs of tension, their eyes constantly scanning the darkness beyond the small circle of firelight. You see them sharpening the edges of their swords on a whetstone, the soft, rhythmic shing 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 of the stone on steel, a deeply unsettling sound in the quiet of the night. When you set out again the next morning, the world itself has been transformed. The vast, empty landscape, which before had been a source of meditative boredom, is now a place of infinite, menacing possibility. Your eyes, which had been turned inward, are now constantly scanning the horizon. Every distant rock formation, shimmering in the heat haze, becomes a potential ambush point. Every small cloud of dust, kicked up by the wind, could be a party of riders approaching. The silence is no longer peaceful. It is a tense, listening silence, a constant straining to hear the sound of approaching hoofbeats. The fear is a quiet, constant companion, a low-grade hum of anxiety that runs beneath every thought, every action. It is the fear that is so vividly captured in the ancient letters of the Sogdian merchants found near this very part of the world. Letters written on paper and carried by other caravans, full of news of turmoil and danger on the roads. The letters do not describe the battles. They describe the fear between the battles. They speak of being stranded, of impassable roads, of the terror of what might lie ahead. You now understand that fear completely. It is not the sharp, hot fear of an attack in progress. It is the cold, slow, and grinding fear of what might happen. It is the quiet, insistent whisper on the wind that tells you, with every step you take, that you are a tiny, fragile island of wealth in a vast, hungry ocean of emptiness, and that at any moment, from any direction, a wave could rise up and swallow you whole. The low, persistent hum of anxiety, the fear of what might lie over the next ridge, begins to fade. It has not vanished, but it has been shouldered aside by a more immediate, more insistent, and far more intimate companion. It is the steady, thrumming, and undeniable reality of your own body. The grand, dramatic fears of bandits and sandstorms are luxuries for a mind that is not otherwise occupied. But your mind is occupied. It is consumed by the small, mundane, and relentless chorus of complaint that is rising from every part of your physical self. This is the slow, grinding toll of the journey, a tax paid not in silver or silk, but in the very fabric of your own body. It is not a sudden injury, not a dramatic wound, but a chronic, unfolding exhaustion, a pain that has become as constant and as familiar as the rhythm of your own breathing. It is the dull music that plays beneath every other sensation. Your awareness settles, as it so often does, on your feet. They are no longer a part of you. They are two separate, complaining entities that you are forced to drag across the landscape. They are encased in thick leather boots, boots that were once a source of pride, but are now instruments of a slow, steady torment. The leather, once supple, is now as hard as wood, stiffened by 1,000 cycles of being soaked with sweat and then baked dry by the relentless sun. The seams, once tight and clean, are now impregnated with a fine, abrasive grit that has worked its way deep into the stitching. With every single step, you feel the geography of this pain. You feel the familiar, hot friction of a blister on your heel, a tender, fluid-filled sac that presses against the hard leather with an exquisite, wincing sharpness. You feel the deep, stony ache of a bruise on the ball of your foot, a memory of a misstep on a sharp rock days ago, a pain that pulses in time with your own heartbeat. And you feel the constant, irritating chafe of the grit that has found its way inside, a million tiny, sharp points that rub against your raw skin, a relentless, microscopic sanding that is slowly, surely, wearing you away. At the end of the day, the simple act of removing your boots is a ritual of both immense relief and excruciating pain. As you pull the boot off, the leather releases its grip with a soft, sucking sound, and the cool night air on your hot, swollen foot is a moment of pure, unadulterated bliss. But it is a fleeting moment. You look at your feet in the dim, flickering firelight. They are a landscape of their own, a map of the journey's hardships. The skin is pale and puckered from the sweat, and cross-hatched with angry red lines where the seams of the boot have pressed. The blisters are swollen and angry, some of them broken, leaving behind raw, weeping patches of new, impossibly tender skin. You take out your small, precious flask of oil and gently, carefully, begin to massage your feet, the simple act of touch a quiet, necessary prayer for the strength to put the boots back on in the morning. The pain is not confined to your feet. It has colonized your entire body. In the morning, when you first awaken from a fitful sleep on the hard, unyielding ground, your back is a solid, unmoving plank of pain. A deep, rigid ache has settled in your lower back, a protest against the nightly pressure of sleeping on a thin mat laid over rock and packed earth. Your shoulders and neck are a tight, knotted bundle of muscle, a result of huddling against the cold and carrying your small, personal pack. The first few movements of the day are slow, stiff, and agonizing, each stretch a small battle against a body that wants only to remain still. As you walk, the pain migrates. It is a living thing. The stiffness in your back slowly, grudgingly, works itself out, but it is replaced by a deep ache in your hips, a complaint from the joints that have absorbed the shock of 10,000 steps. A sharp, needle-like pain develops in your knee, a small, insistent voice that grows louder with every passing hour. This is the true tyranny of the road. It is not the dramatic dangers that wear you down, but this endless, mundane, and chronic discomfort. It is a pain that is never quite sharp enough to be a crisis, but never dull enough to be ignored. It is a constant companion, a third voice in every silent, internal conversation. It is there when you watch the sunrise, a dull throb that underlies the beauty of the colors. It is there when you eat your simple meal, an ache in your jaw from the hard bread that joins the ache in your back. It is there when you look up at the brilliant, cold stars, a weary, heavy weight that pulls you back down to the hard reality of the earth. This constant, low-grade pain slowly, methodically, erodes your spirit. It chips away at your resilience, it dulls your senses, it makes the world a smaller, grayer place. Hope, determination, the thought of the profit that awaits you at the end of the road, all of these things become abstract, distant concepts. The only true reality is the hot spot on your heel, the deep ache in your spine, the sharp twinge in your knee. And the only true goal is to simply endure it, for this step, and then the next one, and then the one after that. The chronic, internal landscape of your aching body, the small universe of blisters and bruises, is suddenly and completely overwhelmed by a new, external reality. For days, you have been traveling through a dry, rocky valley, a world of brown and gray. But for the past hour, a new sound has been growing on the edge of your hearing, a low, persistent rumble, a sound you feel in the soles of your feet before you can truly hear it with your ears. And now, as you round a sharp bend in the path, you see its source. It is a river, but it is not the gentle, meandering river of your homeland. This is a wild and furious thing, a wide, churning torrent of water that cuts a violent path through the valley floor. It is a living, breathing obstacle, and its voice is a deafening, constant roar, a sound that smothers all other noise and fills the air with a sense of immense, untamed power. The water itself is not clear. It is a strange, milky, opaque turquoise, the color of a pale gemstone. It is thick with glacial flour, a fine, silty powder of rock ground to dust by the immense weight of the mountain glaciers from which this river is born. The surface is a chaotic turmoil of standing waves, swirling eddies, and churning white water, a testament to the speed and power of the current and the treacherous, rock-strewn bed that lies beneath. The caravan halts at the river's edge, the long, slow rhythm of your journey broken by this impassable barrier. The air, which has been dry for weeks, is now filled with a fine, cold mist, a spray thrown up by the violent water that settles on your face and clothes with a damp, chilling touch. There is no bridge. There is no ferry. There is only the crossing. For a long, tense hour, the caravan leader and the guide walk up and down the bank, their eyes scanning the churning water, searching for the ford. They are looking for the widest, and therefore the shallowest, point, a place where the river's power is spread thin enough to offer a fragile chance of passage. Finally, a place is chosen, and the organized chaos of the crossing begins. The strongest of the hired guards are the first to enter. They link arms, forming a human chain, a small, fragile wall of flesh and bone against the immense power of the water. You watch as the first man takes a step in. The water, which looks only knee-deep from the bank, is instantly at his waist. He gasps, his body going rigid, his face a mask of shock. The cold is a physical blow, a pain so intense it steals the breath from his lungs. You can see the immediate, violent shivering that racks his body. Then, it is your turn. You link your arm with the man beside you, the rough wool of his sleeve a small, solid anchor in a world that is about to dissolve into chaos. You take the first step into the river, and the shock of the cold is absolute. It is not just cold. It is a biting, searing, and instantly numbing pain. It feels as if your legs have been plunged into a fire made of ice. The cold robs your muscles of their strength, making your legs feel like heavy, clumsy stilts. And then the current hits you. It is not a gentle push, but a solid, relentless force that threatens to tear you from your feet with every step. The water surges against your thighs, trying to find purchase, to pull you under, to drag you downstream into the churning chaos. Your only hope is the linked arm of your companion, the two of you a small, struggling tripod against the river's fury. The riverbed is a treacherous landscape of its own. The stones are large, round, and coated in a slick, invisible film of algae. With every agonizingly slow step, your foot slips and slides, searching for a solid purchase that is never there. The roar of the water is a physical presence, a constant, deafening thunder that makes all communication impossible, reducing the shouts of the men to tiny, unheard squeaks. The camels are driven into the water, and their reaction is one of pure, animal terror. These are creatures of the dry land, and this churning, icy torrent is their vision of hell. They let out deep, groaning, panicked bellows, a sound of profound distress that is almost lost in the river's roar. Their wide, splayed feet, so perfect for the soft sand, struggle to find purchase on the slippery rocks. One of them stumbles, its great body lurching sideways, and for a heart-stopping moment, you think it will go under, taking its precious cargo of silk with it. But it finds its footing, its long neck held high, its large, dark eyes wide with fear. The water is a churning, chaotic mess of men and animals, all fighting their own desperate, individual battles against the same implacable enemy. You see a smaller pack animal, a donkey, lose its footing. It is swept away in an instant, its body tumbling end over end in the milky turquoise water, its brief, terrified bray swallowed by the roar. Your own world shrinks to a few, simple, all-consuming realities. The shocking, numbing cold that is creeping up your torso, the immense, crushing pressure of the water against your legs, the slippery, uncertain feel of the next stone beneath your foot, and the desperate, iron grip you have on the arm of the man beside you. And then, after an eternity, your feet find a new purchase. The ground is no longer loose and shifting, but solid. The pressure of the water on your legs lessens. You have reached the far bank. You stumble out of the river, your legs so numb you can barely feel them, and collapse onto the rocky shore, your body racked with a violent, uncontrollable shivering. Your clothes, soaked with the icy water, are impossibly heavy, clinging to your skin like a shroud of ice. The crossing is over. You have survived. But the river has taken its payment. It has left you with a cold that feels as if it has settled deep in the marrow of your bones, a chill that no fire, no matter how warm, will ever truly be able to chase away. The profound, silent isolation of your inner world, a fortress built of unspoken thoughts and unheard languages, is suddenly and unceremoniously breached. The change does not come from a companion, or a story shared around the fire. It comes from the landscape itself. You have been traveling for days across a flat, open plain, a world of immense sky and distant horizons. But now, the land begins to narrow. You are entering a rocky valley, the flat earth giving way to low, rolling hills dotted with sparse, thorny bushes. The path constricts, forcing the long line of the caravan into a tighter, more compressed formation. It is a natural choke point, a place where the world feels smaller, more intimate, and infinitely more dangerous. The guide at the front of the line slows his pace, his eyes no longer on the distant mountains, but scanning the ridges of the low hills on either side. A quiet, almost imperceptible tension ripples back through the caravan. The hired guards, who had been walking with the same weary, plodding rhythm as everyone else, now move with a new alertness. Their hands, which had been resting loosely, now hover near the hilts of the short swords at their belts. And then you see them. They are not a charging horde. There is no shout, no battle cry. It is a quiet, almost casual appearance. 3 riders on a low ridge to your left, their figures dark silhouettes against the bright sky. Then 2 more to your right. They are not bandits hiding in ambush, but soldiers, waiting in plain sight. They are dressed in leather and felt, their heads wrapped in turbans, and the sun glints dully off the small, overlapping iron plates of the lamellar armor covering their chests. They carry short, powerful composite bows slung over their shoulders, and long spears rest easily in their hands. They watch you for a long, silent moment, their presence a simple, undeniable statement of authority. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, they urge their small, shaggy step ponies down the slopes, moving not to attack, but simply to block the path. The caravan leader raises his hand, and the long, slow-moving line of your world shudders to a halt. The familiar, hypnotic rhythm of walking is gone, and the silence that rushes in to fill the void is heavy and fraught. The camels groan and shift, their animal senses picking up on the sudden, sharp scent of human tension. The leader of the guards, a man with a thick, dark beard and a face weathered to the texture of old leather, rides forward a few paces and stops, his horse stamping a restless hoof in the dust. He does not dismount. He simply waits. Your caravan leader, the old Sogdian merchant, performs a small, almost invisible ritual of preparation. He straightens his dusty robes. He adjusts the cloth around his head. He takes a slow, deep breath, his face a mask of calm, weary patience. Then, he dismounts from his own camel and walks forward, alone, into the empty space between the 2 groups. He stops a respectful distance from the mounted guard, and gives a slight, almost imperceptible bow of his head. It is not a bow of submission, but a gesture of protocol, the opening move in a silent, dangerous game that has been played on this road for centuries. The negotiation begins. The chieftain's man speaks, his voice low and guttural, the words sharp and demanding. The caravan leader replies in the same tongue, his own voice a soft, reasonable murmur. You cannot understand the words, but you can read the language of the tension. It is a quiet, simmering thing, an energy you can feel in the air, a low hum of potential violence that lies just beneath the surface of the polite, ritualized exchange. There are no raised voices, no angry gestures. It is a conversation, but it is a conversation where one man is on foot, and the other is on a horse, holding a spear. The power dynamic is as clear and as stark as the shadows on the ground. This is not a request, it is a demand. A tax, they call it. A tribute for safe passage through this small, forgotten kingdom. A kingdom that consists of little more than these few barren hills and the authority to stop those who pass through them. You watch the faces of your fellow travelers. Their expressions are blank, their eyes fixed on the two figures in the center of the standoff. Every merchant here has factored this cost into their calculations. They know that a portion of their cargo will be bled away, piece by piece, at a dozen such checkpoints between here and their destination. But the knowledge does not make the reality any less bitter. You can feel the collective frustration, the quiet, simmering resentment of powerless men. To resist is to invite disaster, a violent confrontation, the confiscation of all their goods, or simply a delay of days, which in this landscape can be a death sentence in itself. And so they wait, and they watch, and they hate. The negotiation ends as quietly as it began. Your caravan leader gives another small, formal bow. He turns and walks back to the line of camels. He speaks a few quiet words to a driver, and a camel is led forward. One of the heavy bales is untied. Not a bale of the finest, brightly colored silk destined for a Roman senator's toga, but a bale of plainer, rougher cloth. The caravan leader is a master of this game. He knows what must be given, and what must be held back. A bolt of the cloth is unrolled, its simple, honest weave a stark contrast to the immense value of the caravan's hidden treasures. The chieftain's man dismounts, his movements still slow and deliberate. He runs the cloth through his fingers, his face impassive. He nods once, a short, sharp jerk of his head. The tribute is acceptable. Without another word, he and his men gather the bolt of cloth, turn their horses, and ride back up the slope, disappearing over the ridge as quietly as they arrived. For a long moment, no one moves. The caravan stands frozen in the silent, dusty heat. Then, the caravan leader gives a weary sigh, a small, human sound that seems to carry all the frustration of the encounter. He gives the signal to move on. The camels groan, the leather creaks, and the slow, heavy rhythm of the walk resonates. The journey continues, but the caravan is a little poorer, a little heavier in spirit. The profit margin, already razor thin, has been shaved a little thinner. This, you understand, is the true cost of the road. It is a tax paid not just in goods, but in time, in dignity, and in hope. The quiet sense of hope from the small shrine, the brief, warm flicker of connection with those who came before you, lingers in your mind like the scent of incense. But it, too, begins to fade, dissolving into the vast, unchanging rhythm of the road. The journey has been a long series of subtractions, a slow and patient stripping away of everything that is not essential. It has taken your strength, your comfort, your sense of safety, and your connection to the world you once knew. And now, as you approach the end, it prepares to take the last thing you have left, your purpose. For weeks, or months, or perhaps even years, time has lost its meaning. The world has been a simple and brutal equation. Your entire existence has been focused on a series of immediate, life or death objectives. To find the next well before your water runs out. To cross the mountain pass before the blizzard hits. To endure the monotony of the desert without losing your mind. To survive the night's freezing cold. The road has been your master, your adversary, and your reason for being. Every morning you have awoken with a single, clear purpose, to walk. But now, something has changed. The air is different. It is still dry, but it carries a new scent, something other than dust and rock. It is the faint, almost imperceptible smell of wood smoke, of cooking fires, of livestock, of 1,000 human lives being lived in close proximity. The landscape, too, has begun to soften. The harsh, unforgiving wilderness is giving way to sparse, cultivated fields, small, miraculous patches of green wrested from the dry earth. You see a lone figure in the distance, a farmer guiding a simple plow, and the sight of another human being not in your own caravan is a strange and unsettling thing. Your guide points to the horizon. There, nestled in a haze of its own making, is the destination. A city. It is not a clear vision, but a dark smudge, a low cluster of walls and buildings. The end of the road. The caravan does not speed up. The slow, patient, and unchanging rhythm of the camel's gait continues, the pace that has been branded into your very soul. But a change ripples through the travelers. There are quiet murmurs, men pointing, a general straightening of weary shoulders. A quiet excitement, a sense of imminent arrival, begins to bubble in the air. But you do not feel it. You stop walking for a moment, letting the caravan move a few paces ahead of you. You turn, and you look back. You look back at the path you have traveled. From this vantage point, you can see it all laid out, not as a series of individual struggles, but as a single, immense tapestry. In the far, far distance, so faint they are like a watercolor smudge on the edge of the world, are the snow-capped peaks of the mountains you crossed. And stretching from them to where you now stand is a vast, shimmering expanse of pale, golden brown, the desert. You look at this immense, silent landscape, and you feel no sense of triumph. There is no joyous release, no feeling of victory over a conquered foe. The desert and the mountains were not your enemy. They were your world. They were the forge that burned away everything you thought you were, and hammered you into the person who now stands on this dusty track. A profound and hollow emptiness begins to open up within you. It is a quiet, aching void. The journey is over. The great, defining purpose of your life is finished. Tomorrow, you will not wake up with the simple, driving need to walk. You will not have to ration your water. You will not have to scan the horizon for threats. The struggle, the thing that has given every moment its sharp, clear, and immediate meaning, is gone. And in its place, there is nothing. You are not the same person who began this journey. That person is a ghost, a shed skin left somewhere on the vast, empty plains. That person was softer, weaker, full of the small, unimportant anxieties of a settled life. The person you are now is someone harder, quieter, and infinitely more simple. You have been stripped down to your very essence, to the core of your being that is concerned only with sun, and water, and the next footstep. You think of the life that awaits you in the city ahead, the normal life you have been dreaming of for so long, and the thought feels distant and strange. The idea of sleeping in a soft bed seems unnatural, almost decadent, after so long on the hard, honest ground. The thought of a meal with complex spices and a variety of flavors is overwhelming to a palate that has been trained to the simple trinity of dry bread, sweet dates, and bland millet. The thought of a crowded room, of 100 meaningless conversations, of the noise and the rush of a city street. It feels like a violation, a sacrilege against the profound and holy silence you have come to know. That silence. It has become a part of you. You have learned that the silence of the wilderness is not an absence of sound. It is a presence. It is the whisper of the wind over the dunes, the crunch of your own feet on the gravel, the slow, rhythmic beating of your own heart. It is a silence that is full, and rich, and alive. The noise of the city ahead, the clamor of human life, now seems like the true emptiness, a chaotic and meaningless roar designed to drown out the quiet truth of the world. Slowly, you turn back towards the city. You begin to walk, falling back into the familiar, hypnotic rhythm. You are moving towards the end of your journey, but it does not feel like a homecoming. It feels like a quiet, sorrowful exile. You have survived the road. But you know, with a deep and unshakable certainty, that a part of you will never, ever leave it. The journey is over. The long, slow rhythm of the road has finally given way to the low, distant hum of the city. You stand at the edge of the wilderness, a place that has been your entire world for longer than you can remember, and you look back. You see the ghost blue line of the mountains on the far horizon, and the vast, shimmering memory of the desert stretching between. And you feel quiet, empty. The great purpose that drove you forward with every sunrise is gone, and the person you were when you began this journey is a stranger, a ghost left behind in the dust. The world you are about to enter, the world of walls and crowds and noise, feels distant and strange, a story told in a language you have almost forgotten. The hardship is over. The thirst, the hunger, the aching body, the biting cold, the fear, they have all been endured. But as you stand here, feeling the profound and quiet transformation within you, a gentle thought begins to unspool, like that first, luminous thread of silk in the darkness. You begin to zoom out. You begin to see not just your own thread, your own small, arduous path, but the countless other threads that lie alongside it, behind it, and before it, stretching back through the centuries. You have been focused on the single, fraying thread of your own survival. But what if that thread, and the thousands of others like it, were not the whole story? What if each journey, with all its suffering, was a single strand in a vast and magnificent weave? A golden tapestry woven across the entire breadth of the world, a fabric of connection created from a million individual moments of hardship and hope. You begin to contemplate the true cargo of the caravan. Not the bales of silk, not the chests of spices, but the invisible, weightless things that traveled silently alongside them. You begin to understand that the suffering you witnessed, the price paid by every single traveler, was the cost of creating a connected world. Let the sounds of the road you have known, the wind, the soft padding of camel feet, begin to soften and fade. And in their place, allow a different scene to form in your mind. We are no longer in the open desert. We are in a cool, quiet courtyard, somewhere in the mountainous region of Gandhara, the land that now lies in parts of Pakistan and Afghanistan. The air here is no longer dry and dusty, but carries the faint, sweet, and resinous scent of pine and burning juniper incense. The light is soft, filtered through a carved wooden lattice into a quiet, stone-paved cloister. You are in a Buddhist monastery, a place of peace and contemplation, a sanctuary built centuries ago by the prophets of the very trade route you have just survived. You find yourself standing before a statue. It is carved from a dark, gray-blue stone called schist, a material that feels cool and dense to the touch. The figure is instantly recognizable. It is the Buddha. But it is a Buddha unlike any you might have imagined. This is not an abstract symbol of enlightenment. This is a man. A being of profound and gentle humanity. His face is serene, his eyes half closed in a state of deep, inner peace. But the face is not the flat, stylized visage of Eastern art. It is the face of a Greek god. It has a straight, classical nose, full, softly modeled lips, and a calm, noble brow. And his hair. It is not the tight, symbolic curls you might expect. Instead, it is a cascade of soft, naturalistic waves, flowing back from his forehead, tied in a simple knot at the top of his head, a hairstyle known as **chrobolos**, exactly like the one seen on statues of the Greek god Apollo. His robes, too, are not the simple cloth of an ascetic. They are a heavy, voluminous garment, a toga, that drapes across his body in a series of deep, complex, and astonishingly realistic folds. You can almost feel the weight of the stone fabric, the way it clings to the form of the leg here, the way it falls in a graceful, heavy curve there. The figure stands in a relaxed, naturalistic pose, one hip slightly raised, a posture known as contrapposto, a technique perfected by Greek sculptors to give their statues a sense of life and movement. What you are looking at is a miracle. It is a single, solid object that contains the entire story of the Silk Road. It is an idea carved in stone. Here, in this quiet courtyard, two worlds have met and merged. The spiritual depth of the East has been given the humanistic form of the West. The caravan that carried the Greek sculptor, or the sculptor who had learned from a Greek, had to endure the same hardships you did. The thirst, the hunger, the fear. The monk who carried the story of the Buddha's life, the sutras that described his appearance and his teachings, also walked this road. He felt the same biting cold, the same aching in his bones. Their two journeys, two threads of suffering and endurance, met here, in this place. And from their meeting, this beautiful, impossible thing was born. A god with the face of a man, an enlightened being who looks not like a distant, unknowable deity, but like a compassionate, accessible teacher. The road was not just a path for goods. It was a crucible of art, a place where ideas met, and fell in love, and created something entirely new. Now, let this quiet stone courtyard dissolve, let the scent of incense fade. Let the scene shift once more. We travel west along the road, and we travel forward in time, to the years after the Great Battle of Talos in 751 AD. The details of the battle are unimportant, lost to the dust of history. All that matters is its consequence. In the aftermath, a group of Chinese prisoners of war are brought to the great and glittering city of Samarkand. They are not generals, or nobles, or wealthy merchants. They are simple artisans, craftsmen. And they carry a secret in their hands, a piece of technology so revolutionary it will change the world forever. They know how to make paper. Let your mind settle in a workshop on the outskirts of the city. The air here is damp and steamy, and it carries a strange, organic, slightly sour smell, the smell of wet, decomposing plants. It is a noisy place, filled with the rhythmic, percussive thump 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 of heavy wooden mallets and the constant sound of splashing water. You watch as a craftsman takes a pile of raw material, not precious papyrus reeds from Egypt, not the carefully prepared skin of a sheep or a goat, but a humble collection of shredded mulberry bark, old hemp fibers, and even discarded linen rags. He places them in a large stone vat and adds water, and then begins to pound them with a heavy, water-powered trip hammer. For hours, the hammer rises and falls, beating the fibers, breaking them down, until they are no longer recognizable, until they have become a thick, oatmeal-like, homogeneous slurry. A pulp. Then, he takes this pulp and pours it into a large trough of clean water, stirring it until the fibers are suspended in a milky, cloudy liquid. He takes a screen, a simple rectangular wooden frame with a fine mesh of woven bamboo or cloth stretched across it. He dips this screen into the vat and lifts it out horizontally. As the water drains away through the fine mesh, a thin, delicate, and miraculously even film of interlocking fibers is left behind. It is a single, fragile, and soaking wet sheet of new paper. He carefully transfers this wet sheet onto a piece of felt, a process called couching. He places another piece of felt on top, and then another sheet of paper, building a stack, a post, of alternating layers of wet paper and damp felt. This stack is then moved to a large wooden press, and a great screw is turned, squeezing the water out of the paper, compressing the fibers together. Finally, each individual sheet is carefully peeled from the felt and hung to dry on long ropes or pasted to a smooth, sun-drenched wall, where the last of the moisture evaporates, leaving behind a crisp, dry, and wonderfully textured sheet of paper. This simple, ingenious process, a secret carried from China in the minds of a few captive craftsmen, was a revolution. Before this moment, knowledge in the West was written on parchment or vellum. It was a heavy, greasy, and incredibly expensive material. A single large book, like a Bible, might require the skins of over 100 sheep. Knowledge was, by necessity, the province of the very rich. But paper was light, absorbent, and, most importantly, cheap. It could be made from the rubbish of the city, from old ropes and discarded clothes. And from this workshop in Samarkand, this quiet, revolutionary idea spread like wildfire throughout the Islamic world. The great libraries of Baghdad, of Cordoba, of Damascus, which would become the intellectual heart of the world for the next 500 years, were built on shelves filled not with heavy parchment, but with light, cheap, and plentiful paper. It was on this paper that scholars translated the works of Aristotle, Plato, and Euclid, preserving the wisdom of the classical world that had been lost to Europe. It was on this paper that they made their own breathtaking advances in mathematics, in astronomy, in medicine. It was on this paper that the idea of algebra was born, that the first accurate maps of the stars were drawn, that the knowledge of cataract surgery was recorded and passed on. All of this entire golden age of knowledge, was made possible by a secret carried in the minds of a few exhausted prisoners of war, a secret that traveled along the same dusty, dangerous roads you have just walked. The individual journey, the personal story of those Chinese artisans, was likely one of fear and despair. But the thread of their journey was woven into the great tapestry, and the result was the preservation and expansion of human knowledge on a scale that had never before been seen. And so you stand, at the end of your own road, looking back at the hardship, at the pain, at the fear. And you see it now with a new and gentler eye. You see that your journey, and the journey of the monk, and the journey of the merchant, and the journey of the captive artisan, were all a part of something far, far greater than the sum of their individual parts. Each step of suffering, each moment of endurance, was the price that was paid for a connected world. It was the price for a Buddha with the face of Apollo. It was the price for the libraries of Baghdad. You, the weary traveler, the single, aching human being, could not have known the grand purpose of your struggle. The camel driver, his hands cracked and bleeding as he mended a broken strap, was not thinking of the new art forms his journey would help to create. The merchant, haggling over a toll with a local chieftain, was not contemplating the preservation of classical philosophy. They were simply trying to survive. And perhaps that is the most profound and compassionate truth of all. That we are all just threads, moving through the world on our own small, difficult, and often painful journeys. We worry about our own frayed straps, our own small tolls. And we may never see the great and beautiful tapestry that our threads are being woven into. But the tapestry exists. The golden weave is real. It is the story of human resilience, of our endless, hopeful, and often painful quest to connect, to share, to create, and to endure. And your journey, your small, quiet thread of suffering and survival, is now, and forever will be, a part of its magnificent and timeless design. The golden weave of the great tapestry begins to soften. The images of the Greek Buddha, of the papermaker's workshop, dissolve like smoke, leaving behind only a gentle feeling of warmth, of connection, of a quiet and compassionate understanding. The immense, sprawling story of the Silk Road begins to draw to a close. The countless threads of individual suffering and collective triumph, of hardship and of hope, have all been woven into the fabric of the past. The story is told. The journey is complete. And now, your own journey is also drawing to its end. The long, slow caravan of your day, with all its challenges, its unexpected obstacles, its moments of weariness, is finally arriving at its destination. You have reached the final caravanserai, a place of deep, profound, and unconditional rest. You can feel it now. You have passed through the great, heavy gates, and the vast, uncertain wilderness of the waking world has been left behind. The door to the day is closed and barred. Inside these quiet walls, there are no more demands on your energy, no more problems to be solved, no more roads that must be walked. There is only stillness. There is only peace. The unspooling thread of silk, which has been our guide on this long journey, has now reached its end. It lies in a soft, luminous pool at your feet, its journey done. The story has returned to its source. And all that is left is the quiet, and the dark, and the gentle, steady rhythm of your own breathing. You can feel your body beginning to let go. That feeling of emptiness you felt at the end of the road is not a void, but an opening. It is a space waiting to be filled with the deep and restorative quiet of sleep. Allow yourself to sink into that feeling. Feel the weight of your own body, the gentle, reassuring pressure of the surface beneath you, holding you, supporting you completely. Your body is a weary traveler, and it is time for it to rest. Let go of the weight of the day's journey. Let your feet, which have carried you so far, become soft, and warm, and heavy. Feel them letting go, releasing all tension, sinking into the deep comfort of stillness. Now, allow that feeling of release to move upward into your legs. Feel the muscles in your calves, in your thighs, beginning to soften, to unwind, to let go of all they're holding. They have done their work for the day. Their journey is over. Let your back, which has carried the burdens of the day, now feel the deep and welcome relief of being completely supported. Feel each vertebra in your spine gently releasing, one by one, a quiet cascade of relaxation. Let your shoulders, which may still be holding the memory of the day's tensions, now drop away from your ears. Feel them become heavy, and soft, and wide. And now, let your attention drift to your hands, and to your arms. Feel them growing heavy, and warm, and still. There is nothing for them to do now, nothing to hold, nothing to fix. Their work is done. Finally, allow the muscles in your face and jaw to soften completely. Let your tongue rest gently in your mouth. Let the space between your eyebrows smooth and widen. Let your eyes become heavy, and still, and quiet behind your closed eyelids. The whole of your body is now at rest, a weary traveler finally safe in the quiet sanctuary of the night. You are cradled by the stillness, held by the darkness, soothed by the quiet of history. The road has been long, but you have reached your journey's end. It is time to sleep. Good night. Sleep well. Good night.